There is a rule at Westbrook University that nobody ever wrote down. If you argue with me in public, you get a scholarship. It started small. A guy took my bench in the shop lab and we had words about it. 9 days later he was studying refrigeration in another state, fully funded and delighted. Then a teaching assistant failed one of my welds and said so in the corridor, loudly, in front of 3 rooms. He is on a paid research year in Helsinki now. He sends me photographs of snow. I know how that sounds. For a long time it sounded like luck to me too. I let it sound like luck, because the alternative was a conversation I did not want to have with myself. I am slow about certain things. Then came Toby Krantz, on a Tuesday, at 8 in the morning, at the repair desk in the basement of the engineering annex. I run that desk. People bring me dead lamps and dead laptops and dead sound gear, and I bring them back for coffee money, because I am good with anything that has a thread or a wire in it. It is the only part of my week that belongs to me. Toby put a mixing board on my counter like he was serving a subpoena. You killed it, he said. I fixed it. It worked before you touched it. It smoked before I touched it. That is why you brought it to me. That is, in fact, the entire reason you and I have ever spoken. Flip the board over. I had already opened the case once. There was a brown crater where a capacitor used to live, and the green around it had gone the color of toast. That is a dead rail, I said. It went before I got here. I can show you the burn pattern. It is actually kind of pretty. Show me a refund. You paid me nothing. That is the whole business model. Then fix it for free. He said it louder, because the corridor had started to fill up, and Toby has always been a man who checks the audience before he picks the volume. I can order the part. It comes Thursday. My show is Wednesday. Then your show is Thursday. And that is when he said the other thing. The thing he had been holding under his tongue since he walked in. Must be nice, he said. Not needing the money. Everybody knows who pays for you, Ward. I have a very good laugh for that sentence. I have needed it a lot. What I said instead was, nobody pays for me, which was a lie that would take about 2 years to unpack, and Toby heard the seam in it and grinned. The corridor enjoyed itself. Somebody at the back said something about a dowry. And at the far end of the hall, holding a coffee she had not touched, stood Cordelia Ashcroft. She was not listening in any way you could point at. Folder under one arm, coat over the other, that flawless unbothered face she keeps for the general public, the one people describe as elegant when what they mean is closed. She did not look at Toby once. She looked at me for about as long as it takes to read a serial number. Then she went to her seminar. I stood there holding a dead mixing board and I knew, the way you know a storm from the pressure in your ears, that Toby Krantz had 14 hours left in this city. I was right about that. I was wrong about nearly everything else that day. I got to her seminar room at 10 and waited by the door. Don't, I said. Cordelia looked up from her folder. Don't what? You know what? I would rather you said it. You are usually very precise. Toby Krantz. What about him? Nothing yet, I said. That is the point. She considered that with real attention. She considers everything with real attention, which is flattering for about a month and then becomes a weather condition you live under. Elias, she said. I have not done anything to Toby Krantz, which was true. She has never lied to me. Not once, not about anything, not even when lying would have been kinder and faster. It is her only rule and she keeps it better than most people keep a marriage. She simply does not volunteer. Then she handed me a paper bag. Inside it was a roll with egg in it, still warm, and a coffee with too much sugar, which is how I take it and how nobody else on this campus knows I take it. You do repairs on Tuesday mornings and you do not eat before them, she said. Thank you. You always thank me for the small ones. She said it without any edge at all, the way you would report a tide. Never the large ones. The small ones are the ones I get asked about first. That is a rule I could work with, if you gave it to me properly. She closed her folder. Are you giving it to me properly? Not today. Then eat that before it goes cold, she said, and went in, and left me standing in a corridor holding breakfast from a woman I was going to leave by dinner. At 1 o'clock, Toby Krantz had an email. I found him at 4 with his mattress already stripped. Ward. He was laughing. He had that shine on him people get when the universe finally notices them. Ward, Ward, Ward. Sit down, Toby. I cannot sit down. I have a flight. He turned the laptop around. Full tuition, a stipend, housing, a technical placement at a theater in Copenhagen with a name I had only ever seen printed in a book. Departure at 10:40 tonight. Everything paid. Read the eligibility, I said. I read it. Read it again. There is no eligibility. There is no committee. There is no interview and there is no deadline. That is a letter saying yes to a question you never asked. Toby stopped laughing for exactly 1 second. I watched him look at the screen and see it. I watched him decide not to. So somebody likes my work, he said. Somebody heard you argue with me this morning. You are unbelievable. He was laughing again, harder, because the alternative was unpacking. Your girlfriend's family funds half this faculty and you want me to feel guilty about a plane ticket. I want you to keep your semester. I am keeping my semester. In Denmark. Where they have money and I do not have to argue with you about capacitors. He got his bag on his shoulder. At the door he stopped and did the worst possible thing a man has ever done to me. He shook my hand. Tell her thanks, he said. I have replayed that handshake more times than I want to admit. He was grateful. Warmly, genuinely grateful. He got on a plane that night, he lost the entire year, and he thanked me on his way out of the country. That is what she does. She never threatens anybody. She makes them an offer so good that leaving my life feels like winning something. So I went back to the annex, sat in the dark with the dead board in front of me, and finally did the arithmetic I had been avoiding since spring. Almost 2 years ago my father died and left me a workshop with a lathe in it and $31,000 owed against the building. I was at the funeral when somebody paid it. Nobody told me. I found out from the bank, in a letter, in the flattest sentence I have ever read. Account settled in full. It took a week to learn who. It took about an hour after that to open a repayment agreement with the Ashcroft Trust, which belongs to her mother, and which I have been paying into every month since in amounts that would make you laugh out loud. Cordelia has never mentioned it. Not once. That is the part people get wrong about her. She did not do it to own me. She did it because a problem existed and she had a tool, and it did not occur to her to ask, because asking would have handed me the chance to say no. She does not take things from people. She removes their options and then gives them the outcome, beautifully wrapped, at the exact moment they need it most. 11 months ago, in an arcade off Ferry Street at 1 in the morning, both of us soaked to the shoulder, she won a ring out of a claw machine. Silver-colored tin, a chipped green stone, the kind of object that costs about $2 and weighs nothing. She put it in my hand and asked me to marry her. My friend Mars was there and filmed the whole thing on his phone, because at the time he thought it was the funniest night of his life. And I said yes. I want that on the record, because everything after this depends on it. Nobody made me. I said yes in an arcade with wet shoes and I meant it all the way down. She wanted to announce it at her mother's spring gala. I asked her to wait. Then I asked her to wait again. She waited both times without one word of complaint, and she wore that ring on a chain under her shirt for 11 months, because I was not ready to be a fact. I told myself that was her being patient. It was not patience. She was letting me keep a small thing so that she could keep a very large one. I asked her to meet me at the lock stairs on the canal, which is a stupid place to pick in October, and I picked it because it is where we first talked for longer than a minute. She came in a good coat with no umbrella. She does not carry one. She told me once that carrying an umbrella is agreeing in advance to be inconvenienced. You are ending it, she said. Not a question. No surprise in it anywhere. Weather report tone. Toby Krantz is on a plane, I said. He is not yet. He boards in an hour and 20 minutes. You know his flight time. I know your schedule, your seminar rooms, your shifts, and the days you skip lunch. His flight time is not a special effort. Cordelia. Say it out loud. I paid for a place that already existed and offered it to a person who qualified for it, she said. He said yes in under 2 hours. I did not make him say yes. You never do. No, she agreed. I never do. The rain came down the steps in a thin sheet and neither of us moved out of it. That is the fourth one, I said. Fifth. I stopped. Water got into my collar and stayed there. You are counting, I said. You are counting too. You simply got the number wrong, which tells me you count badly, which tells me it upsets you. She said it gently. I would rather know that than not know it. Do you understand what my life looks like from the inside? Anybody who irritates me gets upgraded out of the building. Anybody who likes me too loudly gets an internship. She waited for the rest of it. She always waits for the rest of it. Nobody argues with me anymore. I have not had one honest conversation on this campus in a year, except with you. And you are the reason for that. That was the point, she said, and she said it kindly. I removed the noise. You removed the people. They are not worse off. That is not the test. Then tell me the test. And she meant it. That is the thing that still gets me at 3 in the morning sometimes. She was standing in cold rain being told she was losing me, her voice never went up once, and she asked me for the test, because if there was a test she intended to pass it. Test is whether they got to choose, I said. She thought about that for a while. She takes an idea seriously even when it is going to cost her. That is a good test, she said finally. I do not think I can pass it. I know. So this is where it ends. Yes. I will stop, she said. You believe that while you are saying it. I do. That is worse. She looked out at the black water for a moment. Then she came back to me with something practical, because she always comes back with something practical. Then take the debt, she said. I will close it tonight. Not as a gift. Call it severance if that word is easier. You would owe nothing to anyone and you could go anywhere you wanted. There it was, out loud at last. My entire freedom, offered at retail price, by the person I was in the middle of leaving. No, I said. Elias. I said no. Out loud, so there is no confusion later. Because with her there is always a later, and later she will remember exactly what you failed to refuse. She was quiet a long time. Then she reached up under her collar and pulled the chain over her head. Then take this back. Keep it. It cost $2. It cost me 11 months of saying nothing to anybody. She held it out. I did not take it. That was the last real decision I made that night, and I have had a great deal of time to sit with it since. One question, she said. Go on. Did you ever choose me? Her voice stayed completely level. Once. Any single day. Did you ever choose me, or did you only ever fail to leave? I did not answer. It was not that I did not know. The true answer needed about 4 sentences, and the first 2 of them sounded exactly like a reason to stay, and everything that came afterwards grew out of the 2 I did not say. So I said nothing. She watched me say nothing. Then she nodded once, the way you nod at a delivery that has arrived as described. She turned to go with the chain still in her hand, and the clasp let go. Cheap clasp, cheap ring, cheap night. The ring went down the wet steps. She went after it. I have watched a lot of things go wrong slowly. This did not. Her heel found the worn ridge on the second tread where the metal has gone smooth and the rain sits, her hand hit the rail and slid off it, and she went down the whole flight without putting her arms out, because her hands were full. The sound of it was small. That is the part nobody believes when I tell them. It was a very small sound. Then I was on the steps and there was blood in her hair and she was not moving, and the ring was 2 treads below her, standing upright in a crack in the metal, rocking slightly. Put it in my pocket. I do not know why I did that first. She was lying at the bottom of a flight of wet steps and my first move was to pick up a ring worth $2. I have never told a living person that. The ambulance took 7 minutes. Renata Ashcroft got to the hospital before the test results did, which tells you most of what you need to know about her, and she went past me in the corridor like I was a bollard. The doctor used the phrase retrograde amnesia and then, because all 3 of us just looked at him, he translated it. She has lost personal events, he said. Not skills, not language, not general knowledge. She will know how to drive. She will not know where she parked. The gap looks like a little over 2 years. It can come back in pieces, or not at all, and I cannot tell you which. The fall itself? Renata asked. The last few minutes before an injury like this are gone permanently. Those never come back. Nobody's do. A little over 2 years, Renata said. About that. And then she turned and looked at me for the first time all night. I had been standing in a wet jacket for 3 hours and she had not once put her eyes on me. So she will not know him, she said to the doctor. She may not. And for about a quarter of a second, something moved across Renata Ashcroft's face that I can only describe as relief. I have thought about that quarter of a second more than I have thought about the stairs. Cordelia woke up at 6:20 in the morning. I was not supposed to be in the room. I was in the room. She did none of the things people do in films. No gasp, no hand to the head, no asking what year it was. She lay still for about a minute with her eyes open and read the ceiling, then the drip, then the window, then the chair. And she looked at the flowers on the sill, and the flowers were the only thing in the room that seemed to actually annoy her. "Those are from the trust office," she said. Her voice was dry and cracked and completely calm. "The card will be typed. My mother sends the ones with the stems cut short." Renata stood up so fast her bag went over. "Cordelia, give me a moment, please." She said it the way you tell a waiter you are not ready to order. Then she carried on reading the room. "You have been crying and you have redone your face twice, so it has been a long night, so this is serious." Then she moved her eyes to the door without moving her head. "There is a man in a wet jacket. He is still wet, so he has not been home, so he has been here from the start. Nobody has offered him a chair. Nobody had. So nobody here likes him," she said, "and nobody here has asked him to leave either." She let that sit for exactly one beat. "Which means he is the one who matters." Then she turned her head, looked straight at me, and said, "Hello. Who are you?" 2 years of me had just gone out of her, and she asked for my name the way she would ask for a form. I would love to tell you I had a plan. I had 9 hours in a plastic chair and no plan whatsoever. What I had was a list of true things, and every single one of them was a hook. Fiancée was a hook. 2 years was a hook. I love you was the biggest hook in the building, because at 6:20 in the morning I understood something that I have never once been proud of. The woman in that bed was 18. Her worst instincts had not been fed yet. She had a clean start, and nobody in the world knew that except me. So I took it. "Elias Ward," I said. "We are engaged." Renata's head came round. "It is not what it sounds like," I said. "My father died 2 years ago and left a debt against his shop. Your family closed it." Renata did not move. The engagement was part of the arrangement. A business matter. There was never anything romantic in it, and we were in the middle of ending it when you fell. Nobody said anything for a while. I did not look at Renata. I could feel her looking at me. She had never in her life heard the word engaged in connection with her daughter, because Cordelia had been saving that for a room with 300 people in it and a microphone. Renata Ashcroft had every fact she needed to take me apart in one sentence. She said nothing. She stood there and let it happen. It took me weeks to work out why, and by then I had already used her silence as a load-bearing wall. Cordelia turned the idea over. You can actually watch her do it. Something behind her eyes goes very quiet and very fast. "A purchased engagement," she said. "An arrangement. Between my mother's trust and a mechanic. I prefer technician." Noted. Something at the corner of her mouth moved and put itself away again. "How much?" 31,000. "There is a balance left. I have been paying it back." That stopped her. "You have been paying back a debt that was settled in exchange for your engagement," she said slowly. "That is not how an arrangement works. That is the exact opposite of how an arrangement works." "I know." "Why?" "Because I did not agree to be bought," I said. "I agreed to a schedule." She looked at me for what felt like a very long time. "All right," she said. "Before you decide anything else," I said, "there are rules. I am saying them once, in front of your mother, so that nobody gets to rewrite them later. Go ahead. You do not come to my room without telling me first. You do not arrange my life. Not my job, not my classes, not my friends, and not the people who irritate me. Understood? You do not touch me without asking out loud and hearing me say yes." Her expression did not change at all, which I have since learned to read as a note being taken. "And you get one honest question a day. Anything you like. I answer it truthfully, or I tell you out loud that I am refusing to answer, so you always know which one you got." "One a day," she repeated. "They do not roll over." "That is harsh." "That is the deal." I did not say I objected. She straightened the blanket over her knees with 2 fingers, precisely, the way another woman would straighten a cuff. I said it was harsh. I like harsh terms. Vague terms are how people get robbed. "We understand each other." "Not yet," she said. "But we will. Here is my side of it. I will close the balance today. Whatever is outstanding, the trust pays back to you, the arrangement ends clean, and you keep your rules as a courtesy." "No," I said. "It is not a favor. It is the cost of an agreement I do not remember making, and I would like it settled before lunch." "No, Elias." First time she used my name. It landed somewhere I was not braced for. You are refusing money that you are owed. I am refusing money. Out loud. So there is no confusion later, and that was the moment I lost. Her polite face came apart. Not into hurt. Into interest. I had seen that expression exactly twice before, both times across a debate table, both times about 8 seconds before somebody's argument stopped existing. You will not take the money, she said. No. You are engaged to me for money. You are owed money. And you will not take the money. Correct. Then it was never about the money. I opened my mouth. Nothing useful came out of it. She had taken the one sentence my whole lie was built on, turned it over, and found the crack in it. In a hospital bed. With a head injury. Before breakfast, Renata got me in the corridor an hour later. She handed me a paper cup of coffee I did not drink and told me, in the voice she keeps for contractors, that I would not be coming back. She has a clean start, Renata said. You will not spoil it. You could have corrected me in there. Yes. Why didn't you? She looked at the door of the room for a while. Because in 3 months my daughter is being interviewed for a fellowship in another city. She turned that fellowship down last year and she would not tell me why. Renata put the cup in the bin. And now she does not remember why. Do you understand what you have handed me, Mr. Ward? She had already bought Cordelia a new phone. Clean one. Nothing restored. No photographs, no messages, no calendar, nothing pulled down from the cloud. The archive is recoverable, I said. It is. Are you going to recover it? Eventually, she said, and went to find a nurse. Went back into the room anyway, because Renata Ashcroft has never once in her life said a sentence that made me do what she wanted. Cordelia was sitting up. Somebody had brought her a folder and a pen, because of course somebody had. You are not supposed to be here, she said. No. My mother told you not to come. She did. And you came. She wrote something down. I would give a great deal to know what. Then she put the pen across the folder and folded her hands. I have not used today's question. Then use it. For 1 second the whole flawless machine paused, and what was left was a girl in a hospital bed with 2 years missing out of the middle of her. Did I love you? Here is everything I had, in the half second I had it. I could say no and be a free man by lunch. I could say I do not know, which is the coward spelling of no. Or I could tell her the truth and let her hold it up to the light from every angle for the rest of the semester. I had lied to her about everything else that morning. I was not going to lie about that. I have tried to explain that to myself many times since. The best I can manage is that a man needs to keep one thing, and I picked the single worst thing in the room to keep. Yes, I said. Cordelia sat with it. Outside, somebody wheeled a trolley past the door and kept going. A purchased engagement, she said. A man who will not take the money back. And I loved him anyway. That is not what I said. It is exactly what you said. She picked the pen back up. You are simply hoping I will not do anything about it. And she smiled at me. It was not a threat and it was not sweet, and it was the most frightening thing I have ever seen, because it was the face of a person who has just been handed a problem worth solving. Same time tomorrow, she said. I already know what I am asking. The ward clerk had a printed list, and my name was on it, which was a problem, because Renata Ashcroft had told me the night before that I would not be coming back. Ward, E. The clerk read off her screen. Contractor. Ashcroft Trust. Who put that there? The patient did. 5:20 this morning. She looked up. She was extremely specific about the wording. Of course she was. I had stood in that room and told her we were a business arrangement, and by dawn she had filed me correctly. That is the first thing you need to understand about the month that followed. Every lie I told got processed, indexed, and handed back to me with the paperwork done properly. Cordelia was sitting up with the bed cranked to the angle she likes and a legal pad on her knees. Somebody had brought her 3 newspapers and she had been through all of them. Good morning. You are 6 minutes later than yesterday. I am not on a schedule. Everybody is on a schedule. Sit down. Nobody offered you a chair yesterday and it bothered me all night. There was a chair. She had placed it herself, far enough back that a man does not have to decide what to do with his hands. I have been working, she said. Would you like my findings? Not especially. You are getting them. It is my room. She turned the pad around. She had ruled it into columns. Actual columns, with a straight edge, in a hospital, before 6 in the morning, with a head injury. 1. I am 20 and I believe I am 18, so the gap is not a blur, it is a clean cut. Somebody took a knife to it. 2. My mother has not restored my archive and does not intend to this week. She used the word eventually, which in her mouth means the decision is already made and I was not in the room. 3. Nobody who has come through that door has said your name without fixing their face first. She tapped the last column with the pen. 4. In a day and a night, not one person has told me a single specific thing about you. Not one story. Not one complaint. It is unusual. That is impossible, she said. People cannot help themselves. If a man is nothing, they tell you at length what a nothing he is. Silence that clean has to be arranged by somebody. Nobody had arranged it. The only people in that corridor were her mother, who had her own reasons, and a nurse who had never heard of me. Did not say so, because I had learned something about lying to Cordelia Ashcroft in the previous day, and it is this. You never have to add anything. She builds it for you, out of better materials than you had. I have not used today's question, she said. Then use it. She laid the pen down flat, square to the edge of the pad. Did you love me? There it was. 12 hours after mine, turned around and handed back, which is what she does with everything you give her. I had invented that rule the previous morning as a fence. It took slightly under a day for me to end up standing on the wrong side of my own fence. Yes was true and needed about 4 sentences, and I had already found out on a wet staircase what happens when the first 2 of them sound like a reason to stay. No was a lie, and I had built one enormous lie that morning specifically so that I would not have to spend the rest of the year telling small ones. I am refusing to answer that, I said. Out loud. So you know which one you got. She wrote something down. She did not look hurt anywhere. That was the trouble. Thank you, she said. That is more useful than an answer. How? A man doing a job says no. Quickly, because the quick no is the polite one and he would like the conversation over. A man who did love me says yes, because the truth is cheap when you are leaving anyway. She capped the pen. You did neither. So the answer costs you something. So there is something inside it that I do not have yet. You are reading a great deal into a silence. I am reading exactly the right amount into a silence. It is the only thing in this room you have given me for free. Then she smiled, briefly, and put the pad face down on the blanket. Do not worry. I will not ask it again. That would be waste. I will ask you other things until I have the shape of it, and by then I will already know. She was discharged on the Friday with a list of instructions she ignored and a headache she refused to mention. I know she refused to mention it because on the Thursday I watched her close her eyes for 4 seconds in the middle of a sentence and then finish the sentence from the exact word she had stopped on. The archive came up on the Thursday too. She asked for it in front of me, which I think now was on purpose. I would like my cloud account restored. It is not straightforward, Renata said. It is extremely straightforward. It is a password reset and a piece of identification. The recovery runs through my number, because you were 17 when the account was opened, and I will not sit you down in front of 2 years of photographs in a hospital gown. When, then? When you are well. That is not a date. No, Renata agreed, it is not, and picked up her bag, and that was the end of it. Renata Ashcroft has earned exactly 1 piece of credit from me and it cost something to hand it over. She did not lie. She never lied about anything medical, not once, all the way through. She simply held a door shut and used the word eventually, and every day she held it shut was another day my version of events stood up without help. I had one bad moment in that corridor. I stood there wanting her to keep that door shut. Not needing. Wanting. There is a difference and I could feel it in my chest at the time. Then Renata gave her daughter a new phone. Clean handset, new number, nothing pulled down. Cordelia turned it over once, checked the model, and thanked her. You are taking that better than I expected, Renata said. I have no messages to miss, Cordelia said. I have a number I do not know, in a phone with no history, given to me by a woman who will not restore the history. I am taking it exactly as well as it deserves. The rumor started the following Monday and it started, as far as I can tell, from a piece of paper with my own name on it. Somebody in the trust office made a note. Somebody in the faculty office read the note. By Monday afternoon a second year I have never spoken to held a door open for me and said, nice one, mate. By Wednesday it had a shape. Elias Ward is on a retainer. The Ashcrofts pay him to look after the daughter. That is why he is always there. That is why he never says anything about it. The retainer got a number attached to it inside a week and the number went up every time it was repeated, which is the only genuinely enjoyable thing about being talked about. Girl in materials science asked me, with total sincerity, whether the trust was still hiring. A man in my own year, who has never once bought me a coffee and asked what the hours were like. Somebody wrote a rate on the whiteboard in the annex, per hour, with a bracket underneath that said plus expenses. I rubbed it off. The next day it was back with a decimal in it. And here is the joke, the actual joke, the one I could not laugh at for about 3 weeks. I could not deny any of it. Every denial available to me contradicted the thing I had said in a hospital room in front of 2 witnesses. I had told Cordelia we were a paid arrangement. The campus had independently arrived at a paid arrangement. The lie I built to get free of her had grown a 2nd floor, and strangers were living in it. Mars found me under the whiteboard on the Thursday. First time he had spoken to me since spring. They have got the number too low, he said, and kept walking. Meanwhile Cordelia began courting me, formally, in daylight, with all 4 rules observed to the letter, and it was the worst thing that has ever happened to me. She did not come to my room without telling me first. She told me first. In writing. Each time. I would come out of a seminar and there would be a folded note in my jacket pocket, which is a thing that should be impossible, and the note would say that she intended to be at the repair desk between 4 and 1:30, that I was not obliged to be there, and that she would leave at 1:30 regardless. She was always there at 4. She always left at 1:30. Once I deliberately stayed away, came back at 25:15, and found her sitting on the counter doing seminar reading with her coat still buttoned, and she did not say one word about the 25 minutes. She did not arrange my life. My life became conspicuously unarranged. Nothing broke my way for a month. Nobody who annoyed me won anything. It was like living in a country that had just abolished a weather system. She did not touch me without asking. She asked. She asked in the corridor, in the annex, once across a table in the library in a normal speaking voice, and each time I said no, and each time she said thank you and moved on to the next sentence without a flicker. I want you to understand what that does to a person. Being refused had no effect on her at all, because she had not been refused. She had been answered. She had asked a clear question and received clear information, and she considered the transaction complete. And she spent her 1 question a day like a woman with a budget. What is the worst thing you have ever done to somebody? What do you eat when nobody is watching? How much of the balance is left? That one I answered. 9,200, give or take a month. Do you sleep? Not enough. Was that today's or is that free? That was today's. You have been robbed. I have been robbed, she agreed. I asked a soft one. I am furious with myself. She once wasted an entire day's question by asking whether the annex kitchen had a kettle. She realized it as the sentence was leaving her mouth. I watched her face do something I had never seen it do in 2 years. She said, quietly and with total control, that was a kettle. I have spent a day on a kettle. Rules are rules. Do you know how many of these I have? 1 a day. 1 a day, and no accumulation, and I have just bought a kettle. She stood up and put her coat on. I need to go and be alone about that. I laughed for the first time in 12 days, out loud, in the annex, in front of her. She heard it. I saw her hear it. She filed it. So I did the only sensible thing available to a man in my position. I set out, deliberately and with a plan, to become boring. I had a theory. She had fallen for a version of me that had been very carefully assembled over 2 years, in the way you assemble anything when you want to be liked. Take that away and there is a man with a bad shoulder and 9 pairs of the same socks. The theory was excellent. The theory lasted 9 days. Attempt 1. I told her the worst true thing about myself. Not the debt, not the ring. A real one. 2 years ago a professor brought me a preamplifier and I told him the transformer had gone, and it had not gone, and I replaced it anyway, and I charged him for the part, because that month I could not make rent and he could have bought the building. She listened to the whole thing. Then she said, "How long did it take you to decide?" "About 4 seconds. And afterwards?" "I have thought about it most weeks since." "So you are a man who took $40 once and then paid himself interest on it for 2 years. She got her bag. "Elias, if you are going to confess, confess something that works." Attempt 2. I stopped tidying up in front of her. I ate cold noodles standing over the bin at 2 in the morning during a night shift. I wore the same shirt for 3 days on purpose. On the 4th day she arrived at the annex with cold noodles, ate them standing over the bin, and was better at it than me. "This is efficient," she said. "There is no plate. There is no washing up. Why does anybody sit down? It is 2 in the morning and we are eating out of a bin. We are eating over a bin. The bin is a precaution." She finished, dropped the carton in, and looked genuinely pleased with the whole arrangement. I would like to do this again. Attempt 3 was the one that finished me. There is a crate under the repair desk with about 40 pounds of mixed hardware in it. Screws, washers, spade connectors, spring clips, 4 kinds of thread, 30 years of somebody else's laziness. Every technician who has ever run that desk has looked into that crate and decided to die instead. It is the single most tedious object in the engineering annex, so I put it in front of her. You want to be useful. Sort that. Into what? Thread and gauge. How long has it been there? Since before either of us was born. Excellent, she said, and took her coat off. She sorted it in 5 hours across 2 evenings, without complaining, without music, without asking one thing about me. When she finished she had made trays. She had gone out and bought parts trays with her own money, which is the only money I ever saw her spend that month that was not being watched by anybody. She had labeled them in a small square hand. Then she stood back and looked at the shelf and said, "That is the best I have felt since I woke up." I stood in my own workshop, at 9:30 at night, looking at a woman in a good coat with metal filings on her sleeve who had just enjoyed the worst job in the building, and I understood that my plan was not failing. My plan was working perfectly and producing the exact opposite result, the way a pump will happily empty a boat into the sea if you have put it in upside down. Every flaw I showed her was proof of the same thing. Nobody performs badly for money. A man on a retainer does not admit to fraud, wear one shirt for 3 days, or hand his employer's daughter a crate of rusted screws. I had spent 9 days building the strongest possible case that I was not being paid, and I had built it on purpose, and I had handed it to a prosecutor. "You have been trying to make me lose interest," she said, on the 9th evening, wiping her hands on a rag. "That is today's question." "No. Today's question is why you thought that would work." She did not wait for an answer, which is how I knew she already had one, and that she had been carrying it around for several days before she put it in front of me. Belle Aguirre texted me at 17 minutes past 10 on a Tuesday night, and the exact wording matters, because for the next fortnight it was the most examined document in my life. She wrote that both radio packs had died in the interval, that she had a show on Thursday, and that she would let me name my price, followed by 4 exclamation marks and a photograph of a battery compartment with corrosion in it. Belle runs sound for the student productions. She is very good and permanently exhausted, because she does that on top of 2 jobs, because she is putting herself through a technical degree the hard way with no trust behind her. I fixed both packs on the Wednesday morning in about 40 minutes and did not charge her, because the fault was 2 springs and a scrub with vinegar and I am not a monster. On the Wednesday afternoon Cordelia came to the repair desk, at 4 exactly, as announced. "May I ask today's question?" "You do not have to ask permission to ask." "I would like to." It is not a soft one. It was the first time she had ever flagged one in advance. I put the screwdriver down. "A woman wrote to you at 17 minutes past 10 last night," she said. "Why then?" Her voice was completely level. Not cold, not clipped. If you had heard it through a wall you would have assumed she was confirming a delivery. "How do you know that?" "That is a second question and you have not answered the first." She runs sound for the Drama Society. The interval is around 10. She found the fault, went straight out to the corridor and messaged the only person she knows who can fix it by Thursday. Cordelia considered this. "That is a complete answer," she said. "Thank you. Now tell me how you know the time." "You are asking me a question." "Yes. You do not have a daily allowance. You made the rule for me." "I am asking anyway." "You left your phone face up on this counter for 2 minutes on Monday while you went to find a fuse," she said. The screen lit. I did not touch it and I did not open anything. Read what was on it and I remembered it, because that is what I do with everything, and I have never once in my life been able to stop. She said that without any drama at all, and it was the first genuinely frightening thing that had happened in a fortnight, precisely because there was nothing in it to object to. "Are you asking me to feel guilty about that?" she said. "I am deciding. Take your time. I would like to know the outcome." "You did not ask who she was." "No." "Why not?" "Because who she is does not change anything," Cordelia said, putting her folder under her arm. I already knew who she was. Mars caught me on the shop stairs on the Friday with a paper folder in his hand and no interest whatsoever in how I was. I filed it, he said. Filed what? The appeal. Wednesday. It is in. He had lost his crew position last November, 1 week after he told me to leave her, and the line in his record says he was removed following a conduct review for misuse of departmental equipment. He did not misuse anything. He is the best technician on our year and the only one of us who labels his own cable. That line is why he cannot apply for the Kestrel, which is the only technical scholarship at this university worth having. They will want to know why now, I said. They already asked. I told them the truth, which is that I finally worked out where the complaint came from. He turned the folder around so I could see the top sheet. Under origin of complaint somebody had typed, in flat administrative English, that the review had been opened at the request of the Donor Relations Office, following representations from the Ashcroft Trust. You put her family in a live file. I put a fact in a live file. Mars. Do not, he said. I did anyway. She does not know. She cannot know. She was 18 4 weeks ago. That is not my problem. It is going to become her problem in writing. Good, he said. Written down is the only kind that ever gets fixed. Then he shifted the folder to his other arm and looked at me properly for the first time since spring. He came to find me on Tuesday, he said. Cordelia. Stood outside the loading door for 20 minutes. Very polite. Wanted to ask me about the year she has lost. My stomach did something unpleasant. What did you say? I said no. You said no. I walked past her and I went home. Mars, I am not doing it. His voice went up for the first time, once, and came straight back down. I am not the one who tells her. I am not standing in a corridor explaining to a woman with a head injury what she is. Then who does? He looked at me the way you look at a man who has asked a question with his own name inside it. You built it, he said. You knock it down. He went down 2 steps and stopped. I still have that night on my phone, by the way. The arcade. I have not opened it since March and I would rather not. Are you threatening me? If I were threatening you, you would already know. I am telling you where a thing is, in case you ever grow up. Then he went to work. Belle Aguirre's letter arrived 9 days after the radio packs. Fully funded summer placement at a post house in Montreal. Housing included, travel included, a stipend that was frankly obscene, starting in June. No interview. No committee. No deadline, because there had never been a question to answer. She showed it to me herself, in the annex, with her hands shaking, and said, Elias, I have applied for this twice. Twice. They do not even send a rejection, they just stop existing. I read it standing up. I recognized the shape of it the way you recognize your own handwriting on a note you do not remember leaving. No eligibility. No committee. Everything paid. That is very good news, I said, which is the single worst thing I said in the entire month, and I said it to somebody's face. Then I went and found Cordelia in the reading room of the library and sat down opposite her, and I did not raise my voice, because I had finally learned that raising it is just a way of asking her to be gentle with you. Belle Aguirre, I said. Montreal. In June. Yes. You are not going to tell me it was a coincidence. No. Why would I do that? I have never lied to you. Then say the sentence. I paid for a place at a post house that already existed and offered it to a person who has applied for it twice and deserves it, she said. It is a good placement. She will be extremely happy there. You did it because she messaged me at 17 minutes past 10. I did it because she messaged you at 17 minutes past 10 and you fixed both packs in 40 minutes and did not charge her, Cordelia said. I am not going to pretend it was about the packs. Right. You did not charge her, Elias. It was 2 springs. You charged a professor $40 for a transformer that was not broken. She closed her book. I know exactly how much you charge people. It is a very consistent figure and she got a different one. I sat with that for a second, because it was true, and because being read that accurately by somebody who has known you for 4 weeks does something to the back of your neck. I am not asking you to apologize, I said. Apologies are free. I have watched 5 people leave this city grateful and I have never once seen an apology change a plane ticket. Then what? Cancel it. It cannot be uncancelled. She has the letter. Then you go and tell her. Yourself. Out loud, to her face, in front of whoever is in the room. What you did, why you did it, and that she can keep it or refuse it, and either way nothing happens to her. Cordelia was very still. You are asking me to hand a person an injury she does not currently have. I am asking you to hand a person a choice she does not currently have. She is happy. She is happy about a thing that is not what she thinks it is. That is not happiness, that is bad information. Most happiness is bad information. Not the kind you can be sued for. You are enjoying this. I am not enjoying 1 second of this. That was true. My hands were cold. Explain to me what I get, she said. Nothing. That is not how you negotiate. It is when the other person wants something more than they want to win. She waited. She always waits for the rest of it. You have a theory about me, I said. You have had it since the second morning. You think that if there was never any money in it, then I stayed for some other reason, and you want to know what the reason is more than you want anything else in the world. Nothing moved in her face. That is how I knew I had it. Every time you clear a room for me, you destroy your own evidence, I said. If you keep buying people out of my life, then I have only ever stayed in an empty room. You will never find out what I would have done in a full one. You are the only thing standing between you and the answer. The reading room hummed. Somebody's chair scraped 2 tables over. That is a very good argument, Cordelia said at last. Thank you. I dislike it enormously. I know. It is airtight. I know. You have made it so that refusing you costs me the thing I actually want, which means you have not asked me for anything. You have simply arranged the furniture southwest. There is one place to sit. She looked up. Elias, that is what I do. Yes, I said. It is. I will do it on Thursday, she said. In front of her crew. I would rather not do it twice. Then she opened her book again, at the correct page, and read for 6 more minutes while I sat there, and neither of us said one further word. She did it in the green room of the Alder on the Thursday, between the get-in and the sound check, with 6 people in it. I have thought about how to describe the next 4 minutes for a long time, and the honest version is very short. She stood in the middle of a room full of people in work clothes, in a coat that cost more than the lighting desk, and she said, Belle, the placement in Montreal came from my family's trust. I arranged it. I arranged it because you contacted Elias Ward late at night and I did not like it. Nobody moved. Somebody's radio hissed on the table. It is real, she said. It is fully funded and it is yours if you want it, and nothing will be taken away from you if you refuse it. Nobody will contact you again. I am telling you because you were given something without being asked, and that was, and then it happened. Her voice went on the word. Just went, halfway through, the way a mic does when a cable is bad. She stopped. She started the sentence again, from the beginning. I have known that woman for 2 years and I have watched her take apart people who did this for a living, and I have never seen her start a sentence again. And that was not a kindness, she said. It was a decision I made about your life without you. I am sorry that I did it. I am not going to pretend I did not want to. And she stood there. She did not leave. She stayed in the room, in the silence, for what must have been 15 seconds, and let 6 technicians look at her. I have never wanted to help anybody so much in my life, and I could not, because I was the person who had put her there, and I was the only one in the room who knew it. Belle kept the placement. She told me on the Saturday, in the annex, while I pretended to be busy with a lamp. You are going to say something, she said. I have nothing to say. Your face is saying it. My face is doing its best. I applied twice, Belle said. Twice. I would have applied a 3rd time. I have wanted this since first year. She put her bag on the counter. So what exactly is your plan, Elias? I hand it back and then I feel clean, and then I still have 2 jobs. I wanted you to get to choose. I did choose. On Thursday, in front of everybody, I chose. That is what she gave me back, and it is the only thing anybody could have given me back. She pulled her sleeve down over her wrist. You did not give me anything. You have been watching this happen to people for 2 years. That landed exactly where she aimed it. Toby Krantz, she said. Yes. You knew on the day. Yes. Did you tell him? I told him to read the eligibility. Belle laughed, once, without any warmth in it at all. You told him to read the eligibility. Yes. And then you let him shake your hand. I did not have anything for that. She picked up her bag. For what it is worth, she said from the door, she was the only one who told me the truth, and it cost her, and you stood at the back with your hands in your pockets. Then she went to her show. Toby's semester did not come back. That is worth saying plainly. Cordelia cancelled one thing, in public, at cost, and it changed nothing at all for the man who was already in Copenhagen with a year gone out of the middle of him. That is the actual arithmetic of the whole business, and nobody in this story ever managed to improve it. Noor Haddad hired me on the following Monday and did not ask me a single question about any of it. She came down to the annex looking for somebody who could rebuild a counterweight arbor, which is the mechanism that takes about half a ton of stage lift and makes it move at the speed a person can walk. The Alder has had one since before the war. It has been condemned twice. Noor has a grant, an opening night in March, and a specific expression she uses when a date is mentioned. She looked at the desk. She looked at the trays on the shelf, sorted by thread and gauge, labeled in a small square hand, and she pulled one out and put it back in exactly the right place. Whose are these? A friend's. Does the friend want a job? The friend has money. Everybody has money until March, Noor said. Can you do a rope lock? I can do a rope lock. Can you do 14 of them and a shaft bearing while a structural engineer stands behind you being unhappy? Yes. Paid, she said. Not much. Actually paid, though, through the university, not through anybody's family. Nights and weekends. If your personal life comes onto my floor and touches my schedule, I will remove you the same afternoon and I will not feel anything about it. Understood? I mean it. I have a building to hand back in March. She wrote a time on the back of a receipt. Wednesday, 8 at night. Bring your own tools, we lose everything. Job decided everything that came afterwards. It was the first money in 2 years that did not come out of the Ashcroft Trust in one direction or go into it in the other. It was about $9 an hour and it was mine, and I did the arithmetic on a bus and worked out that if I kept it through spring, the balance would be gone in June instead of the following year. And she got it for me. That is the part one could not make sit still in my head for weeks. Not by arranging it, not by paying for it, not by removing anybody. She got it for me by spending 5 hours of 2 evenings sorting a crate of rusted screws for nothing, because I was trying to make her go away. Cordelia was on the Alder floor the second week, because Noor had to get in, no crew and no shame. You, Noor said to her. Do you have hands? I have hands. Unpaid until I know if you are any use. Understood. Do not tell me who your mother is. I was not going to. People always tell me. It never helps. Noor pointed. Cable that whole rail and coil it properly or do not coil it at all. She was good. That matters later, and it was not charming and it was not endearing and she did not drop anything on her foot. She was good the way a person is good who has read the manual, watched once, and has no interest in being praised. She coiled cable correctly on the first attempt. She learned the difference between a rope lock and a break in a single sentence and never asked again. By the third night the head carpenter, a man who has never in living memory said a positive thing about anybody, called her the tall one and then, a week later, by her name. We worked the deep part of those nights together, 1:30 to 4, when the building goes cold and the only people left are the ones who actually want the thing to be finished. We did not talk about the hospital or the trust or Montreal. We talked about the arbor. She was funny at 2:30 in a way she is never funny at 4 in the afternoon, dry and slightly cruel and mostly about the structural engineer. And I was happy. I have gone over it many times since and I cannot find a more honest word. I was standing on a lift shaft at 2 in the morning with a woman I had lied to, and I was happy. On the Thursday she came down off the rail with her hands black and stood next to me while I was torquing a bolt and said, "May I touch your arm?" Not sweetly. The way she asks anything. No, I said. Understood, she said, and put both hands in her coat pockets, and stayed exactly where she was. We stood there for about a minute. She did not move away and she did not sulk and she did not make it a small thing by joking. She had asked, she had been answered, she was still standing there. I have been kissed in my life. I have been held. I have had a woman fall asleep on my shoulder on a night bus. None of it was in the same postcode as standing in a cold theater next to somebody with their hands in their pockets on purpose. It was not a punishment, I said eventually. I know. You do not seem, Elias. She was looking up at the shaft. You gave me a rule that says you will answer or refuse out loud. I have had 4 refusals now. Something in the back of my head sat up. Did you keep them? Of course I kept them. She said it the way you would say of course I breathed. Did I love you? What is in your left jacket pocket? Why you stopped using my first name? And what happened on the stairs? The bolt was fine. I kept turning it anyway. They are all the same shape, she said. Every soft question you answer instantly, in detail, at length. Every question about last October you refuse. Not one of them is about money. Cordelia. That is not a question, so you do not have to refuse it. She wiped her hands on the rag and passed it up to me. I am telling you where I am. I would rather you knew. Then she went and got her coat, and at the door she said the thing that kept me awake until the light came up. I have decided I do not think you were ever paid, she said. I think somebody was, but I do not think it was you. And she went out into the street. 2 days later Renata Ashcroft opened the quarterly outgoings for the discretionary account, because she opens them every quarter, and found 5 fully funded international placements approved in 22 months with no committee, no interview, and no shortlist attached to any of them. 4 of them she could tie to a name in her daughter's year. The 5th was a post house in Montreal, approved 12 days ago, by a signatory who was supposed to be in a hospital bed. Renata Ashcroft froze her daughter's access on a Tuesday morning, in her own daughter's kitchen, with a printout on the table between them, and I was there because Cordelia had asked me to be there. It was the first thing that told me something had changed. She did not want a witness. She wanted a technician. 5, Renata said. 22 months. No committee anywhere near any of them. Yes. You are not going to deny it. You have the outgoings in front of you. Why would I deny it? Then explain it. I cannot, Cordelia said. I do not remember doing any of it. Renata's hand stopped on the paper. I had been in rooms with those 2 for 2 years and I had never once heard her mother go quiet first. Then how do you know it was you? Because I recognize the method, Cordelia said. It is a good method. It is what I would do. She put her finger on the 4th line. That is the one I do remember. That is 12 days ago and I remember it completely, so I have to assume the other 4 looked exactly the same from the inside. The account is closed to you as of this morning. I assumed it would be. There is no appeal. It is discretionary, it is mine, and I am exercising it. I know what discretionary means, Mother. I was raised in the building. You are not angry. I am extremely angry. I am simply not going to spend it on you, because you cannot give me back what I want. Renata folded the printout in half. And what do you want? The names, Cordelia said. All 5. With the dates. That is where I stopped being able to watch comfortably, because I understood 2 things about 4 seconds apart. The first was that she had not asked for the money back. Not once, not as a bargaining position, not even as a joke. The second was that her mother had just done to her the only thing that had ever genuinely worked on Cordelia Ashcroft, and it had taken her about 90 seconds to convert it into a research request. By the names, Renata said. So that I can pay them back. With what? That, Cordelia said, is the interesting part, is it not? Renata gave her 3 of the names. She refused the other 2, said they were closed matters, and would not be moved. I watched her daughter file that refusal exactly the way her daughter files everything. I have thought a lot about what a rich person is. I used to think it was somebody who could buy things. After that Tuesday I decided it is somebody who has never had to find out what they are like at the bottom of a price list. Cordelia Ashcroft found out inside a week and it was the funniest and worst thing I have ever watched. She sold a watch. She did not mention it and I did not ask, but a watch stopped being on her wrist and $800 arrived in Toby Krantz's direction, and I only know the figure because Toby told me later, at volume. She started taking the bus. Not as a gesture. She simply worked out the route, bought a card, and took the bus, and then complained about the bus for the rest of the year with a precision that I found genuinely restful. The timetable is decorative, she said. It is a work of hope. Somebody sat down and wrote what they wished would happen. And she gave the alder about 30 hours a week for nothing, and got very good very fast, and I began to understand what I had actually done to her. I had taken away her checkbook by taking her memory, and her mother had taken away the rest, and what was left underneath all of it was a person who did not know how to be near somebody without paying for it. So she paid in the only currency she had left, which was 6 hours a night on a cold floor, and she never once mentioned to anybody that it was a currency. Noor Haddad noticed inside a fortnight. Noor Haddad does not have a sentimental bone anywhere in her body, and she has never pretended otherwise. She came and found Cordelia at the cable rail on a Thursday, in front of me, and had the single most businesslike conversation about my private life that anybody has ever had without me. You are here every night. Yes. You are unpaid. Yes. You are unpaid and you are better than two of my paid people, which means you are either an idiot or you are here for him. Both are possible. Do not be charming with me, I have a structural engineer. Nor tap the rail. Here is my problem. My problem is that on the 11th of March 140 people sit down in that room and either the lift works or my career does not. Understood. Your relationship is a schedule risk. Not a moral issue, a schedule risk. When two people on a crew are like this, one of them stops being able to think, and I cannot afford which one. What do you want? Terms, Noor said. He works his 4 nights. On his nights you are on the opposite side of the building or you are not in it. You do not swap his shifts, you do not cover for him, you do not bring him food onto my floor, and if he is late you do not explain why. It is acceptable. I am not finished. In return you get the Thursday get-ins and the Sunday dark days, which are the only 2 things in this building anybody actually wants, and I will write you a reference in April that means something. Cordelia thought about it for perhaps 5 seconds. One amendment, she said. Go on. If he is injured, I am told. Not comforted. Told. Fine. Then we have an agreement. They shook hands. 2 women shook hands over my working week, in front of me, without either of them turning their head. Do I get a vote? I said. No, said Noor. No, said Cordelia. You have 4 nights and a bearing to press, Noor said, and went to shout at somebody about a fire door. I stood there holding a coil of cable and understood that I had just been placed on a schedule by the only 2 people in the city who could do it, and that both of them had done it in the open, out loud, in front of me, and neither of them had lied about any part of it. There is a version of my life where that was the worst thing that happened to me. In the actual version I laughed about it for 2 days and then noticed I was on time for everything for the first time since my father died. The Mars business came at her sideways and she went straight at it. The appeal had a number and a status and a deadline and it named her family, and once she had the names of 3 people her past self had removed from a building, she went and found the file that named her. I did not tell her to. I want that established, because I have not earned much and I am keeping the little I have. She did it on a Sunday with a public terminal and a library card, and by Sunday evening she knew more about her own behavior than I did. She came to the annex that night without warning me, which was the only time all autumn she broke a rule, and she stood in the doorway with her coat still on. I am in breach, she said. I know. Come in. I would rather say it in the doorway. Say it in the doorway then. Marcus O'Yelleran lost his position on the 14th of November last year, following a conduct review opened at the request of donor relations, following representations from the Ashcroft Trust. She said it the way you read a serial number off a plate. The representations were made in a telephone call. There is no transcript. The person who took the call has left the university. There is one initial in the margin of the note and it is mine. Cordelia, 1 week before that, he told you to leave me. She was still in the doorway. You did not tell me that. I found it in his statement of grounds. He asked me not to. That is a reason. I am not saying it is a bad one. She put her hands in her pockets. Elias, I want you to look at me and tell me whether I ruined that man. And there it was, the first completely straight ball anybody had thrown me since October, and I had to decide in about a second and a half whether to catch it. Yes, I said. How badly? The line in his record blocks the Kestrel. The Kestrel is the only technical scholarship here that leads anywhere. He has lost a year and he will lose another one getting it back. Thank you. Is that today's question? No, she said. Today's question is different. She took 1 step in and stopped again. Did I do it because of you? Could have said I do not know. It would even have been defensible. I have been over it many times. Yes, I said. She put her hands back in her pockets and went home on the bus. Toby Krantz came back on the last Friday in November and he did not come back quietly, which was the first sensible thing anybody had done in that building all month. He had a folder, a tan, and an anger that had been marinating in a Danish rehearsal room for 6 weeks, and he came into the annex at 4 in the afternoon when the corridor was full. Ward. Toby. Where is she? You have about 7 minutes, she gets off the bus at 10 past. That threw him slightly. I do not think he had expected me to help. Cordelia came in at 9 minutes past with cable ties in one hand and got about a yard into the room before she recognized him from a photograph in a file. Mr. Krantz, she said. You know who I am. I know who you are. I do not know you. That is convenient. It is accurate, she said. Convenient would be if it were also useful, and it is not. Toby put the folder on my counter. The placement was withdrawn from me 2 weeks ago. That was news to me. It was news to her too. I watched her face do the small thing it does. By whom? By the funder. There is no funder. There is your family, and your family closed the tap, and the theater in Copenhagen was very apologetic and gave me 12 days to leave a country. That was my mother, Cordelia said. It was not a decision about you. It has never once been a decision about me. He said it flat, no volume. That is the whole complaint. That has been the complaint since March. She reached into her coat and took out an envelope, and I knew what was in it because I had seen a watch stop existing. 800, she said. That is what I have. It is mine, not the trust's, and there is more coming when I sell the other thing. No. It will cover, no, Toby said. I heard you the first time, she said. I am asking why. Because you are doing it again. The corridor had gone very quiet. You did it in October with a plane ticket and you are doing it in November with an envelope. Same move. Smaller budget. That is fair, she said. It was the first time I ever heard her concede a point to a stranger without a fight, and it landed on Toby harder than an argument would have. I do not want your money, he said. I want the sentence. In the department, in writing, on my record. That the withdrawal in October was not academic and the year was not my fault. That is all. That is the entire list. You understand that costs me considerably more than $800. Yes, said Toby. That is why I want it. She looked at him for a long moment. Thursday, she said. Faculty meeting is Thursday at 4 and it is open to students. I will do it there. You will not send someone. I will do it there. Then I will be there Thursday, Toby said, and picked up his folder, and on the way out he stopped in front of me and said, very quietly, you still have not told her anything, have you? He did not wait for an answer, which meant he already had one, which is a thing that kept happening to me that year. I have been to exactly one faculty meeting in my life and it was that one. They do them in the long room above the library, with tea in a heated urn and about 40 people who would all rather be elsewhere. There is an item at the end called any other business and nobody has ever used it. Cordelia used it. She stood up in a room where 2/3 of the people present had eaten dinner in her mother's house, and she said her own name first, which I have never seen anybody do. Cordelia Ashcroft. 3rd year. In November of last year a complaint was made by telephone to donor relations concerning Marcus O'Yelleran. It was made by me. It was not academic and it was not true. The urn ticked. Somebody put a cup down. In October of this year a fully funded exchange was offered to Toby Krantz through a trust account I control. It was not a merit award. It was made because he argued with somebody in a corridor, and he has now lost a year and a place because of it. She had not brought a note. Her hands were empty. I am asking the faculty to correct Mr. O'Yelleran's record and to record Mr. Krantz's withdrawal as not attributable to him. She did not look at anybody in particular. I am also telling you that I have no memory of the first of those two things and that this is not a defense, because I recognized the handwriting immediately. Head of the faculty, who is not a fool, said, Miss Ashcroft, are you aware what you are putting on a minute? Yes. Your family funds a considerable, yes, she said. I am aware of what my family funds. That is the reason a telephone call worked in the first place. Then she said the thing that I have not been able to put down since. I would like it noted that the person who made the call does not exist anymore. I am not asking you to be kind about that. I would simply rather you corrected the record than forgave her. She sat down. Toby Krantz, 4 rows back, did not clap, because he is not a clapper, but he did close his eyes for a second. And I stood at the back by the urn with my hands in my pockets exactly as Belle Aguirre had described me, and I watched a woman apologize in public for a thing she could not remember, while I stood 12 feet away with the entire rest of it in my mouth and did not open it. That was the day I stopped being able to tell myself that I was protecting her, and I did not manage to replace that sentence with any other one for another 4 months. 2 days later I asked her for 6 hours. I need to explain why, because from the outside it looks like cruelty and from the inside it was closer to panic. Since the faculty meeting I had been carrying around a feeling I could not name, and when I finally got it into words at about 4 in the morning it turned out to be admiration, which was the single most dangerous substance available to me that winter. I had spent 2 years telling myself that her love was a machine with a person attached. Then the machine got switched off at the wall by her own mother, and the person stayed, and got on a bus, and stood up in a room full of donors and put her own name into a minute. So I did what I always do when something is too good, which is test it until it breaks. 6 hours, I said. Saturday. 2 in the afternoon until 8. My phone is off. You do not know where I am. Fine, no. Do not find out. That is not the same thing. Knowing is passive. I already know that on Saturdays you are usually at the workshop until the light goes. Then I will not be at the workshop. Then I will not know, she said. Elias, I am not being difficult. I am asking for the actual boundary because I intend to keep it, and vague terms are how people get robbed. I nearly laughed. No looking. No driving past. No asking anybody. No arriving somewhere because you calculated I would arrive there. May I ask one thing? Go on. If something happens to you in those 6 hours, who is told? Nobody. That is a bad rule. It is the rule. He was quiet for a second. Very well. You are agreeing quickly. You have offered me a test, she said. I have wanted a test since October. You are the only person who has ever given me one. Here is what I did with my 6 hours, and it is not impressive. I walked to the lock stairs on the canal. It was the first time I had been back. They had put grit tape on the second tread, which somebody should have done 4 years ago, and there was a new handrail with the paint still tacky. I stood at the top for about half an hour and did not go down, and then I went down, and stood at the bottom, and did nothing there either. Then I took the ring out of my left jacket pocket. Tin. Chipped green stone. Still with the broken chain wound round it because I have never untangled it. I had it out over the water for a while. It weighs nothing. It would have made no noise at all. I have gone back and forth on why I put it in my pocket again, and the best I have is this. Throwing it away would have been the last piece of housekeeping in a very tidy crime, and I did not want to be tidy. I wanted to be carrying something. Then I sat in a cafe 2 streets away and read a manual about shaft bearings for 4 hours, which is genuinely how I spent the rest of it. At 2 minutes past 8 I turned my phone on. Nothing. No messages. Not one. She was at the annex on Sunday at 4 exactly, as announced, and she waited until I had finished a lamp before she said anything. I need to tell you something and it does not count as my question. All right. At 20 to 5 yesterday I drove past the workshop. I put the lamp down. I did not stop, she said. I did not get out. The lights were off and I could see they were off from the road, which is what I went to see. It took 9 seconds and then I drove to my mother's and sat in the car park until 8. Told me not to look. I looked. I am telling you because you would not have found out. I want to describe accurately what that did to me, because everything after it is a consequence. If she had lied, I would have won. If she had not looked, I would have won differently. What she did instead was fail the test and then hand me the evidence, unprompted, at a cost, for no advantage. Why? I said. Because a person who only keeps the rules you can check is not keeping rules, she said. She is managing you. She sat down on the stool. She looked tired, which she never lets herself look. I would like to say something and then I would like you to not be generous about it. Go on. I nearly did not tell you. I worked out at about 6 o'clock that you had no way of finding out, and I sat with that for 2 hours, and it was extremely comfortable. She turned her hands over. That is the part that frightened me. Not the driving. The 2 hours. And I sat in my own workshop with my father's tools on the wall behind me and a ring in my jacket and 11 weeks of a lie in my mouth, and I listened to a woman describe, with total accuracy, exactly what I was doing, and then apologize for it. You are not saying anything. No. Is that a refusal? Yes, I said. That is a refusal, said out loud. Understood, she said, and got her coat, and at the door she said, for what it is worth, I would rather have the rule than the 6 hours. Fragment came 8 days before Christmas, on the shop stairs at the Alder, in weather that could not have been better cast if I had ordered it. It had been raining since 2. The get-in door was propped and the metal stair from the loading bay up to the fly floor had a film on it, the way that stair always has a film on it, and the head carpenter had been complaining about it since before I was born. She was carrying a case of counterweight bricks up that stair with both hands. I was 6 treads above her. She stopped. Not dramatically. She stopped the way a machine stops when the supply goes, 1 foot on the tread, both hands full, looking at nothing. Cordelia. Nothing. Put the case down. She put the case down, correctly, against the stringer, which tells you what kind of person she is even mid-event. Then she sat down on the step in the wet and said, rain. Metal under my hand. Something heavy in both hands and I cannot put it down. She said it in her ordinary voice, which was the worst part. And falling. Not falling. About to. She looked up at me. Elias, was I ever on a staircase in the rain? There it is. That is the whole story in 10 words, and it took her 8 weeks to get there, and I had about 2 seconds. I want to say that I thought about it. I did not think about it at all. It came out of me the way you catch a falling glass, before any part of you has been consulted. You have been carrying 100 pounds of iron up a wet stair for 6 hours, I said. That is not a memory. That is a tired person on a bad staircase. She sat with it. The rain came in through the prop door and got on both of us. It is very plausible, she said slowly. Is it true? You have not asked me a question today. I am aware of what I have and have not spent. I am asking whether that was true. And I looked at a woman sitting in water on a metal step, 8 weeks out of a head injury, holding out the first piece of her own life that had come back to her, and asking me to check it. It is true, I said. Up until that afternoon I had told exactly one lie. It was an enormous one and it was about the past, and I had a speech ready about mercy, and I used to run the speech in my head on the bus. The lie on the stairs was a small one and it was about right now, and there was no speech anywhere in the building. Everything before that afternoon I had done to somebody who was already hurt. Everything after it I did to somebody who was getting better. She went back to work. She carried the rest of the bricks up. She was faster after the break than before it, and at 9:30 she made a joke about the structural engineer's coat, and I laughed, and I meant it, and that is who I am. Nor gave me the arbor on the 2nd of January. Not a shift. The section. Lead technician on the counterweight arbor and the 14 rope locks, on the paid list, through to handover in March, with my name on the drawing office board where the engineer could shout at it directly. First person to congratulate me was a second year who said, "Nice, mate, must be handy having a friend on the crew," and did the face. Nor was standing 4 feet away with a clipboard, and Nor Haddad has no interest in being liked by anybody. Say that again, she said. He did not want to say it again. She made him say it again. Miss Ashcroft has asked me for nothing, Nor said, at a volume the loading bay could hear. She has never mentioned his name to me. I asked her once whether he was any good and she said, and I am quoting, "That is not a question you should be asking me." She went back to her clipboard. He has the section because he is the only person in this building who can do a rope lock properly and I have 10 weeks. Get the fire curtain weighed. I found Cordelia at the cable rail an hour later. You knew, I said. Knew what? That she was going to ask you. She asked me in November. And you said nothing to me. It was not mine to say. It was your job. She wound a loop and hung it. I would like to be clear about something, since you are going to think about it anyway. I wanted to answer her. I had a very good answer ready and it was all true and it would have worked. Why did you not use it? Because you would have found out eventually, she said, and then the section would have been mine, and you would have handed it back, and I would have had to watch that. Then she picked up the next coil. Also, I am on the Sunday dark days now and I would like to keep them. That was the night I stopped defending myself. Do not have a scene for it. There was no conversation. I walked home along the canal at 1 in the morning past the lock stairs with the new handrail on them. Somewhere between the bridge and my street I noticed that I had stopped counting the balance down and had started counting the weeks to the 11th of March. I had spent 11 weeks building a fence out of rules, and the rules had worked perfectly, and the woman on the other side of the fence had turned out to be somebody I wanted to be near. And the last thing I thought before I got my key out was not I have to tell her. It was, if she remembers, this stops. That is where I was by the 2nd week of January, and I would like it understood that nobody did it to me. I built every part of it myself, out of good materials, in the open, over 3 months. By the middle of January the campus had quietly settled the question of what we were, and nobody had asked either of us. The retainer story died sometime over Christmas, because a paid companion does not stand in the rain at a bus stop on Ferry Street at midnight arguing about a bearing tolerance, and 40 people had watched us do exactly that. What replaced it was worse, because it was accurate. We got put on the same line of a rota sheet. Somebody wrote us into a joke at the crew Christmas thing and neither of us corrected it. A woman in the drawing office asked me to pass on a message to Cordelia, and I said I would, and it took me until the bus home to notice that I had not felt anything about being asked. Think we are together, I said. They think we are two people who are always in the same room, she said. That is not a theory. That is arithmetic. You are not going to correct it. Correct it to what? She did not look up from the schedule, which she had been annotating for an hour. Elias, I have been introduced to strangers as your girlfriend 4 times since the 1st of January, and on every one of those occasions the correct answer was a paragraph, and I did not have a paragraph, so I said good evening. That is not a denial. No, she agreed. It is not. Marcus O'Yelleran sent me the file on the 19th of January at 10 at night, with no message attached, and then a second message 40 seconds later that said, Exhibit 4, hearing is the 6th of February, sort it out. I did not open it that night. I sat on the edge of my bed with the phone in my hand for about an hour, and then I put it under a book, which is exactly as effective as it sounds. I opened it on the Tuesday, in the annex, with the door shut. It is 2 minutes and 41 seconds long. It is filmed badly, sideways for the first 8 seconds, because Mars was laughing too hard to hold anything level. The arcade off Ferry Street at 1 in the morning. Both of us soaked through to the shoulder because we had walked from the bridge. The claw machine at the back that everybody knows is rigged, with the sun-bleached prizes and the yellow light. She is standing in front of it in a ruined coat, absolutely furious, feeding it coins, and she is talking the whole time about the physics of the claw and how the grip strength drops out of the solenoid on the lift, which is true, and she is right, and she keeps going anyway. On the 9th attempt it comes up with a ring in it, and she makes a sound I have not heard her make before or since. Then she turns around, and she is not composed at all. Her hair is flat to her head and there is mascara halfway down, and she takes my hand and puts a $2 ring into it and says, Elias, marry me, I have had a terrible night and I would like one thing to go my way. And you can hear Mars in the background say oh my God, and you can hear me laugh, and then you can hear me say yes. Not think about it. Not pause. Yes, straight away, in the exact tone I would use to agree to a second coffee, and then a second later, quieter, in a completely different voice, yes. Second one is the one I have not been able to get out of my head since. The file ends with Mars shouting that he is going to charge us for the footage, and Cordelia telling him he can have 10% of nothing. I watched it 4 times. Then I sat in a cold workshop at 3 in the afternoon and understood, with the clarity you only get about 4 months too late, that I had described the happiest night of my life to a woman in a hospital bed as a business arrangement in settlement of a debt. Mars was waiting for me on the shop stairs on the Thursday, which by then was the only place he ever spoke to me. You watched it? Yes. Good. Take it out of the appeal. No. Mars, it is the only thing in the bundle that puts her family and me in the same room on a date, he said. Without it I am a man with a grudge. With it I am a man with a timeline, and let me pay you for it. That was a genuinely stupid thing to say and I heard it leaving. He looked at me for a long moment. Say that again and we are finished for good, he said. I have spent a year being a thing that people buy or do not buy. I will not be that for you as well. I am sorry. I know you are. It does not do anything. He shifted the folder. 6 weeks. Panel reads the bundle. After that it is in the room and it stays in the room and nobody can take it back out. Does she know it exists? I have not spoken to her since November and I am not going to. He went down a step. I am not being noble. I do not want to be in the room when she finds out, because I have met her, and I would rather it was you standing there. Mars. It is going to be somebody, he said. Pick. So I set a date. That is what I did instead of speaking. I picked the 26th of January, which was a Sunday dark day, and I spent 5 days assembling a version of the truth in the correct order, and I even wrote the first 2 sentences on the back of a cut list. We were on the fly floor. The building was empty. She was pulling old sash line off a set of arbors and coiling it for the skip, which is the only job in a theater with no skill in it at all, and she was doing it with total attention. I need to tell you something about last year, I said. All right. It is going to change how you look at all of this. Most things do. She did not stop coiling. Elias, you are allowed to just say it. And I opened my mouth, and she said, before I got there, may I say something first, because if I do not say it now I will lose my nerve, and I am not a person who has nerve to lose. Go on. She put the coil down. I like myself, she said. She said it the way you would report a fault. I have been trying to work out what is different since October and I have been assuming it was the memory, and it is not. It is that I like myself. I do not think I ever did. Cordelia, I have been through all of it, she said. The 5 names. The telephone call. The envelope. That woman was extremely capable and she frightens me, and I have spent 3 months paying off things she did, and 2 weeks ago I noticed I was no longer doing it out of guilt. She wiped her hands. I was doing it because I would like to be somebody who does that. That is new. I have never in my life done anything because I would like to be somebody. The building made the noise empty theaters make. Somewhere below us the compressor cut in. I do not know what any of that has to do with you, she said, except that all of it happened in the 11 weeks since you told me who I was. I am not stupid, so I have a theory about it. But I will not say it, because you would refuse it out loud and I would rather keep the evening. That was not your question, I said. My voice came out wrong. No, she said. That was free. And I stood on a fly floor with 2 prepared sentences in my mouth and I looked at a person who had just told me she liked herself for the first time in her life, and I put the sentences away. I have replayed that decision more than the handshake with Toby. I still cannot get it to come out differently, and I have stopped believing that means it was right. I left my phone face up on the steel bench in the shop on the 29th of January at about 4:30 in the afternoon. The engineer was shouting up the stairwell about the fire curtain weighing, which he had been shouting about for 9 days, and I went, and I did not think about the phone at all, because it was a phone on a bench in a building where I had left a phone on a bench 200 times. The file was open on it. Not playing. Open, paused, on the frame where the claw comes up with the ring in it, because that is the frame I had stopped on that morning and had not been able to make myself move off. I was gone about 20 minutes. When I came back the phone was where I had put it and the screen was dark and Cordelia was on the far side of the shop marking up a cut list with her back to me. I picked it up and it was warm. Remember noticing that? I remember thinking that steel benches are cold and that a phone should not be warm, and I remember deciding, in about a second, that the screen had probably stayed lit and that this was a stupid thing to be standing still about. I have had a very long time to think about the phone being warm. Nothing happened that evening. That is the part one cannot make anybody believe. She finished the cut list, she asked me whether the second arbor needed a new lock or a rebuild, she ate half a sandwich and said the bus was a work of hope, and she went home at 11. What happened instead started 3 days later and it happened entirely in questions. What did I look like a year ago? Taller hair, I said. Less black. You had a green coat you have not got now. Did I wear anything on a chain? I was under the arbor with a torque wrench and I am grateful for that, because it meant she could not see my face. I am refusing to answer that, I said. Understood, she said, and did not ask again, and did not ask why, and did not do the thing she has always done, which is to circle back to a refusal from a different angle 4 days later. She had never once let a refusal lie. She let that one lie completely. How long did we know each other before the arrangement started? About 4 months. And the arrangement began in March. In April. In April, she repeated, and wrote nothing down, which she also never does. Then, a week later, at a bus stop in the rain, with no lead up at all, was I happy? When? Whenever. Pick a month. Yes, I said. Most of the time. You were happy in a way that made other people nervous. Thank you, she said. That is what I thought. I want to make something clear about that fortnight, because I have gone over it in every possible order and there is no version where I come out well. Every one of those questions had an answer in it. She was not asking. She was checking, out loud, in front of me, in a slow flat voice, the way you check a figure you have already added up twice. I sat inside it and answered every one of them at length, in detail, gratefully, and felt nothing at all except relief that none of them were about October. On the 11th of February I asked her a direct question, and I have never asked her another one that mattered without hearing this one first. We were walking back along the towpath at 1 in the morning. Has anything else come back? I said. Since the stairs. She did not break step. No, she said. That was the first lie she ever told me. It took her 11 weeks longer than it took me and it was 11 weeks shorter than mine, and I did not notice it at all, because I had stopped listening for lies. You stop hearing an alarm you set yourself. We walked the rest of the way and she complained about the bus for 6 minutes, in detail, with examples, and I did not interrupt her once. February at the Alder was the best month of my life, and I would like to be allowed to say that flatly, without a single qualification hung on the end of it. The arbor came apart on the 3rd and it was worse inside than anybody had guessed. 2 of the 14 locks were welded shut with 60 years of rosin, the shaft bearing had gone oval, and the engineer stood at the bottom of the well and said the word condemned twice in one sentence. Nor listened to all of it, looked at the wall calendar, and said, the 11th of March is not a suggestion made by me. Elias, what do you need? 2 more pairs of hands and the building to myself on Sundays. You have the building on Sundays. Hands are harder. I have hands, said Cordelia, from the top of the ladder, without turning round. You have hands on Thursdays and Sundays, Noor said. That is the agreement. Then amend the agreement. Noor Haddad looked at her for a second and I watched a professional decision get made. Amended, she said. You are on the paid list from Monday. Not because of him. Because I have 4 weeks and you can read a drawing. I will take it, Cordelia said, and I would like it on the same rate as everybody else, and I would like to be told if that is a problem for the grant. That was the first money she had earned in her life. She was insufferable about it for 9 days. She kept the payslip in her coat. $9 an hour, she said. Do you know how much of a bus that is? I know exactly how much of a bus that is. It is 26 buses. I have been working out everything in buses. We got into a rhythm that month that I have never had with another human being. I would come in at 6 and she would already have the well swept and the drawings weighted down with whatever was heavy and nearby. We stopped explaining things to each other around the 10th. By the middle of the month we had gone past talking into the thing where you put your hand out and the correct tool arrives in it. The head carpenter, who by then had graduated to calling her by her actual name, watched this happen for a week and then said, to nobody, well, that is disgusting, and went to have his tea. She was funny that month in a way I had not seen since before the fall. The engineer had a coat. It was an expensive coat and he wore it to a rigging job, and she constructed an entire theory over 4 evenings in which the coat had been bought by a woman trying to get him to leave, and she developed it, and refined it, and by Thursday she was doing footnotes. You have to stop, I said. He is a perfectly nice man. He measured a fire curtain with a laser and then wrote the number down wrong, she said, and he did it in a $900 coat. I have very little in my life at the moment. Let me have this. And once, in the middle of all of it, on a completely ordinary Tuesday, she put down a spanner and said, I would like to tell you something and I am not going to act on it. Go on. I know where you were on Saturday afternoon. Not because I looked. Because you came in with a receipt sticking out of your jacket and I read it, and it is a hardware place near your father's workshop, and you have been there 4 Saturdays running. That is correct. I would very much like to know what you are doing there. She picked the spanner up. I will not ask, because it is not my business and you did not offer it. I am telling you that I want to, because you asked me to say things out loud instead of doing them quietly. Thank you. It is not a virtue, she said. It is enormously uncomfortable and I dislike it. But it appears to be the arrangement. That is what she had turned into by February. A woman who announced her own worst instincts, out loud, at a workbench, and then simply did not act on them, and was visibly annoyed about it the entire time. I looked for the file on the 21st of February and it was not on my phone. I looked in the message thread, and the thread was there, and Mars's 2 lines were there, Exhibit 4, hearing is the 6th of February, sorted out. The attachment was gone. I looked in the downloads. I looked in the deleted items. I looked in 3 places that do not exist, the way you do. Then I sat down on an upturned crate in the shop and worked out, quite calmly, that there were 2 possibilities. One was that I had cleared it myself at some point in a month where I had been sleeping about 5 hours a night. The other was the phone being warm on the 29th of January. And I could not ask. That is the thing I want understood. I could not walk across the shop and say, did you delete something off my phone, because the very next sentence in that conversation is what was it, and I had spent 4 months making sure that sentence could never be asked. The lie had stopped being a thing I was telling. It had become the shape of the room I was standing in, and there was no wall I could push on that did not hold up the ceiling. I looked for it twice more that week. Then I stopped looking, and I would like to be honest about the reason, which is that I was relieved. For about a fortnight I lived in the best and stupidest state a man can occupy. I told myself that the hearing on the 6th had already happened, that nothing had come of it, that whatever the panel had read in a room in the Humanities building had stayed in that room. Mars had not spoken to me since the shop stairs. Nobody had come to me with anything. It is remarkable how much silence a person can eat when he is hungry enough. Arbor ran for the first time on the 23rd of February at 11:20 at night. I want to describe this properly because it is the last completely clean thing in this story. You load an arbor with iron until it balances the thing hanging on the other end, and then a bar that weighs about half a ton moves up and down the height of a building because one person pulls on a rope with 2 fingers. That is the whole trick. It is 150 years old and there is nothing clever in it anywhere. We had rebuilt every part of it. New locks, new bearing, new sash, the shaft trued by a man in a unit off the ring road who charged me in cash and told me my father was a decent sort. The engineer had gone at 9. Noor had gone at 10, after standing at the bottom of the well for 20 minutes saying nothing, which from Noor Haddad is a standing ovation. The head carpenter had gone home to his tea and had not come back. It was the two of us and a building with the work lights on. She took the rope. I said the numbers. The bar came off the deck, and went up 30 feet in about 4 seconds, smooth the whole way, no snatch, no chatter, and stopped where I said stop. And then it just hung there, half a ton of steel, perfectly balanced, absolutely silent, and Cordelia Ashcroft held it with 2 fingers and started laughing. Not her ordinary laugh. The one from the arcade. Head back, both feet flat, no control in it anywhere. Elias, she said. Elias. It is not doing anything. It is not supposed to do anything. That is the best thing I have ever seen. We brought it down. We ran it 6 more times because we could not stop. At about midnight she was sitting on the deck with her back against the pin rail and her hands black to the wrist, and she said, "May I hold your hand?" Checked. I am ashamed of it and I did it anyway. I checked the whole shape of the evening in about 2 seconds for the fingerprints of a plan, and there were none, nor had sent everybody home. The engineer had left early because of the coat. The arbor had run when it ran because a bearing arrived on a Tuesday. She had not arranged one thing about it, and I could tell, because I had spent 2 years learning what her arranging looks like from the inside. Yes, I said. She did not move for a second. I think she had a plan for a no, and no plan at all for the other thing. Then she sat next to me on the deck of a theater at midnight and held my hand, and neither of us said anything for a long time, and the work lights ticked as they cooled. "I would like to say something," she said eventually, "and I would like you to know that I have thought about the wording for about 6 weeks. Go on." "I do not think you were ever paid," she said. "I have thought that since November. And I have stopped trying to prove it, because I worked out that proving it would only tell me what happened, and it would not tell me anything about now." She turned her hand over, still in mine. "So I am going to ask you for something instead, and you can refuse it out loud." "Ask." "Stay this year." She said it exactly the way she says everything. "Not forever." I am not asking for a lifetime. I know how that sentence sounds coming from me. "This year." Until the summer. I sat in the dark holding the hand of a woman I had lied to since October, on a deck we had rebuilt together, under a bar we had balanced ourselves, and I said, yes. And I meant that one too, which was the entire problem. We went out through the get-in door at 1 in the morning and it had stopped raining and neither of us went for a bus. We walked. It is 4 miles and we walked all of it. I have had, in total, about 3 genuinely happy nights in my adult life and 2 of them are in this story and both of them are hers. Here is the arithmetic of where we had got to by the end of February, and I did not do it at the time, because nobody does it at the time. I was lying to her about her entire life. She was lying to me about at least one thing, and I did not know which, and I had chosen not to find out because finding out would have cost me the evening. She had decided to stop looking for the truth about the past. I had decided to stop looking for the truth about the present. We had arrived at exactly the same policy from opposite directions and neither of us had told the other one, and we were happy. That is the part nobody warns you about. 2 people can build a very comfortable house out of nothing but the things they have each agreed not to say, and it will keep the rain off for months. The only question left was which of us was going to speak first, and I would like to be able to tell you that I was thinking about that constantly. I was not. I was thinking about the 11th of March, and a shaft bearing, and whether the head carpenter had ordered the right sash line, and I was happier than I had been since my father was alive. Renata Ashcroft called me on the 2nd of March and asked me to come to the house, and I went, because I have never once in my life managed to not go. The Ashcroft house has a room off the hall that exists purely so that people can be dealt with before they reach the rest of it. I have been in it 4 times and I have never once been offered a coat hook. The Ainsley interview has been moved, Renata said. It was in June. It is now the 29th of March. That is 27 days from now. Yes. Who moved it? I did. I asked, and they were accommodating, because I have been accommodating to them for 15 years. She has not applied. She applied at 19 and was accepted at 19 and withdrew at 19, and the place has been held open by a man who thinks she is the best candidate he has interviewed in a decade, and she has never told me why she withdrew. She poured tea I did not want. Now she does not know why either. So the reason is gone and the place is still there. You are going to put her in a room in 18 days and ask her to want something she cannot remember not wanting. I am going to put her in a room with the best fellowship in her field, Renata said, which is what a parent does. And she opened a folder, and I knew what was coming, because it is always a folder with that family. There is a technical post at a company in Bristol. Restoration and rigging. They do the sort of thing you have been doing at the Alder, and they do it with a budget. She turned it round. 2-year contract. Accommodation for the first 6 months. It starts in May. Whose money? Not the trust's. I have called somebody I know. That is the trust's money with an extra step in it. That is how everything in the world works, Mr. Ward. You are very young. No. You have not read it. I do not need to read it. I know the shape of it, and I have known the shape of it since I was 19. I put it back on her side of the table. No. Out loud. So there is no confusion later. She looked at me for a while. Do you know, she said, you sound exactly like her. I am aware. It was not a compliment. I did not take it as one. You are also, currently, the only reason my daughter is going to turn that interview down. That is possible. It is certain, Renata said. And I would like you to understand what you are being, so that you cannot enjoy it. And then she told me the thing. 2 years ago I saw a payment leave a discretionary account and settle a stranger's debt against a workshop. $31,000. No paperwork, no relationship, no explanation. My daughter was 18. I knew all of this. I did not know the next part. I made an appointment with a colleague of mine. I began the process for a capacity assessment. Voluntary in the first instance and not voluntary after that, if it came to it. She put her cup down. I was going to have my daughter examined. I know, I said. Yes, Renata said. You know, because you came to this house, in a jacket with a tear in the shoulder, and you sat where you are sitting now. She did not move, told me that if I did it you would tell her who had started it, and that she would never speak to me again, and you were right, and I stopped. I remember. I have never told her. I know that too. So consider the position. She was very calm. That family is calm the way weather is calm. At 18, my daughter did something that ought to have been looked at by somebody qualified. The one person who could have made that happen was stopped. By you. Then she spent 2 years doing it 4 more times, and one of them lost a year of his life and one of them lost a career. That is not, I have not finished. And then she fell down a staircase, and lost the memory, and became, by all accounts including my own, a considerably better person. She folded her hands. And you have spent 5 months making certain she never finds out any of it. Tell me the difference between us. I sat in that room and could not find one. I have looked since. I have found smaller ones than I would like. The difference, I said, eventually, is that you wanted somebody to examine her and I wanted somebody to argue with her. And has that worked? Yes, I said. Actually, yes. It has worked better than anything you ever did. Then why, said Renata Ashcroft, does she still not know what she is? I did not have anything. I got my coat off the back of the chair, because there was no hook, and I got as far as the hall. Mr. Ward. She was still sitting down. The Bristol Post stays open until the 1st of April. I will not raise it again and I will not mention it to her. That is not a kindness. It simply works better if you do it yourself. I walked home the long way, past the canal, and I would like to record that I was not thinking about her offer at all. I was thinking about a 19-year-old in a torn jacket telling a very powerful woman what would happen to her family, and I was trying to work out at what exact point I had started doing it for myself. The trust pulled the Alder grant on the 7th of March, 4 days before the opening, by letter, citing a review of discretionary commitments. Nora read it standing up in the drawing office with her coat still on and did not say a single word for about 40 seconds. Then she said, "Right," and started making a list. The grant was not the building and it was not the arbor, which were already paid for. The grant was the last fortnight. It was the 2 extra crew, it was the fire curtain certification, it was the insurance rider that lets you put 140 people in a room under half a ton of moving steel. Without it there is no opening. There is a very good lift in an empty building. I have 4 days, Nora said. Somebody find me a curtain inspector who works weekends. And then she made the decision she had been telling everybody she would make since November, and she made it without any pleasure at all. Elias, you are off the arbor. I had been expecting a lot of sentences that morning and not that one. The arbor is finished. The arbor is finished and the fly floor is 9 days behind, because the fly floor has been done by one man who has been doing 40 hours of it a week around a repair desk and 4 other lives, she said. Certification is going to be done on the fly floor with a man from the council standing on it. It has to be right by Monday and you cannot do it by Monday. Who is doing it? Marcus O'Yelleran. He starts tomorrow at 8. He is the only person in this city who can do a fly floor in 4 days, and he happens to be free, which is not a coincidence, because I have been keeping an eye on that appeal since November for exactly this reason. Am I off the job? No, Nor said. You are on shifts. Under him. If you cannot do that, tell me now and I will take the whole thing on the chin, but do not tell me on Sunday. I want to be accurate about this, so I will say it plainly. Being taken off the section did not hurt very much. Working 4 days under Mars while he was polite to me hurt more than anything else in this story except one thing, and I will get to that. He was good about it, which was the worst available option. He came in at 8, read the drawings for 20 minutes, and then ran that floor like a man who had been born on it. He gave me the sash line and the pin rail because that is where the skill is and he knew I could do it. He asked my opinion twice and took it once. He said thank you at the end of every shift. On the Tuesday night he said, the panel sat on the 6th. I know. They have reserved. It means they are checking something. He coiled a line. You still have not told her? No. Right, he said, and went home, and that was the whole conversation, and I would have preferred a fight. Everybody in that building spent that week saving somebody else without asking them first, and I have never seen anything funnier or more depressing in my life. Nor took a personal loan against a contract she had not signed yet, and told nobody, and I only found out because the bank rang the drawing office landline. The head carpenter, who is 61 and has a bad hip, quietly put himself on night so that a second year with an exam would not have to. Elias, who had every reason to walk past the whole thing, came in on the Wednesday and did 14 hours of cable for nothing, and when I tried to thank her she said, "This is not for you, this is a good building," which is the single most theater sentence ever spoken. And I sold my father's lathe. I did not tell anybody that either, so I am in no position to be superior about it. A man came in a van on the Thursday morning and gave me $4,200 and took it away, and I stood in an empty workshop with a rectangle of clean floor in it and did the arithmetic. $4,200, plus what I had, plus the March pay, and the balance on my father's debt came to nothing on the 29th of March instead of June. I have been asked since why the date mattered. Nada Ashcroft had told me the 29th of March was her daughter's interview, and I had decided, in the stupid private way men decide things, that I would not owe that family $1 on the day Cordelia sat down in that room. So there we all were. 6 people in a cold building, every one of us paying for something out of our own pocket, in secret, for somebody who had not asked. You can call that love if you like. From inside it looked much more like a group of people who had all independently decided that asking was too expensive. I did my worst thing on the Friday, and I did it in front of witnesses on purpose. We were in the drawing office. Nor, the head carpenter, Mars at the end of the table with a cut list, and Cordelia by the window with her coat on because she had come from the bus. Nor said, "There is no version of Monday where I have a curtain certificate," and the room went quiet in the way rooms do when everybody has the same idea and nobody wants to be the one holding it. I looked at Cordelia and I knew exactly what she was going to do, because I have known this woman for 2.5 years and there has never once been a moment where I could not read her when it counted. So I said it out loud. "She is going to go to her mother," I said. "Tonight, probably. She is going to offer her something, and she is not going to tell me what, and on Monday the grant will be back and everybody in this room will decide not to ask how." Nobody moved. The head carpenter looked at the table. Mars put his pen down very slowly. Cordelia did not change expression at all. She looked at me across a drawing office with about 9 feet of cold air between us, and I watched something happen behind her face that I have thought about every week since. "That is correct," she said. "That was the plan. It is a good plan and it would have worked. I know. You have just made it impossible. I know that too, because if I do it now," she said, "everybody in this room will know that I did it, and you will know that I did it, and it will not be a gift. It will be a receipt." She put her hands in her pockets. "You have taken a thing I was going to do quietly and made it cost me the only part one wanted." "Yes. That is the cruelest thing anybody has ever done to me," she said. "It is also completely fair. I want both of those on the record." And then she did the thing that ended the argument and started everything else. "May I do you the same courtesy?" she said. "Go on. You have been about to tell me something since January." The room was extremely quiet. "You started on the fly floor on the 26th and you stopped. You started again at the bus stop in February and you stopped." Mars was looking at the table. "You have opened your mouth about 9 times and every time your left hand goes into your jacket pocket." "Cordelia. You are going to try again this week, because the opening is on Monday and you have decided that afterwards will be cleaner," she said. "You will not do it. You will find a good reason." It will be a genuinely good reason and I will probably agree with it. She picked up her bag. I am telling you out loud, in front of these people, because that is what you did to me, and because it appears to be the only language either of us can hear. Then she said good evening to Noor, because she is who she is, and went to catch the 6:20. Mars waited until the door shut. Well, he said, you two are going to be very happy. She went to her mother on the Saturday. I know because she told me she was going, on the Friday night, by message, in one line, with no explanation and no invitation to argue. I read it 4 times and then I put the phone down and went and stood in my father's empty workshop for a while, and the rectangle of clean floor where the lathe had been was still there, and it is remarkable how much a missing object can look like an opinion. Here is what I had done, and I knew it by about 11 o'clock that night. I had taken away the only version of the act that she wanted, and she had gone and done it anyway. That is not a woman being defeated. That is a woman deciding that a building full of people mattered more than whether the thing she did for them was pure. I had spent 5 months waiting for her to prove she had changed, and I had accidentally designed the exact experiment that proved it, and then I had spent Saturday night furious about the result. Curtain inspector came on Monday morning at 9, walked the fly floor for 2 hours with Mars, ate a sandwich, and signed. The insurance writer was in Noor's inbox by 4 in the afternoon. Nobody said the word grant out loud in that building for the rest of the week, which is how you know everybody knew. The Alder opened on the 11th of March at 7:30 with 141 people in it, which was one more than the certificate allowed, and Noor Haddad has never once acknowledged that. I was on the pin rail. Mars called it. The bar came in on a cue 32 seconds into the second scene and went out again 9 minutes later, half a ton of steel moving in a room full of people who did not look up, because when it is done properly nobody looks up. That is the entire art form. You spend 4 months in a lathe on a thing whose only success condition is that 141 people fail to notice it. At the interval the head carpenter came up the ladder with 2 paper cups of tea and gave me one and said, "Your dad would have gone on about that bearing for a year." He had never mentioned my father before. He has not mentioned him since. Cordelia was on the opposite side of the building all night because that is what the agreement said, and at the end she came across the deck with her sleeves rolled and cable burn on one hand and stood next to me and did not say anything for about a minute. "It worked," she said. "It worked." Nobody looked up. Nobody looked up. "That is obscene," she said. I have never been prouder of anything in my life. Renata Ashcroft was in the foyer afterwards, in the group by the door, being extremely gracious to a man from the council. I was carrying 2 flight cases past her and I would have got out of the building clean, and she said, "Mr. Ward," in the voice she keeps for contractors, and I stopped, because I am an idiot. "It is a very good lift," she said. "It is. I understand you are not on it anymore." "I am on shifts." "Yes." She took a glass off a table and did not drink from it. "You are going to hear this in about a week from somebody who will make a mess of it, so I am going to do it now." "Do not." The grant was reinstated at 9 o'clock on Monday morning, Renata said. The consideration was as follows. My daughter attends the Ainsley interview on the 29th of March. She did not lower her voice. If she is offered the place, she accepts it. The program begins on the 12th of April in another city and she is on it. The foyer carried on around us. Somebody laughed at the door and went out. She proposed those terms, Renata said. Not me. I had intended to ask for the interview. She offered the acceptance and the start date, and she offered it in about 40 seconds, and I sat there and let her, because I have wanted it for 2 years and I am not a saint. You could have said no. So could you, in November, about a great many things. She put the glass down. She asked me not to tell you until after the opening. I have complied with that to the letter and I am now finished complying. Why tell me at all? Because in 18 days my daughter will be offered the best thing that will ever be offered to her, Renata said, and I would like to be certain that when she gets on the train it is because she wants to, and not because she has bought a fire curtain certificate for a man who lied to her. I stood in a foyer holding 2 flight cases. You do not know that I lied to her. Mr. Ward, she said, almost kindly, I was in the room. I found Cordelia in the drawing office at 11:30, doing the get-out list, because somebody has to and she had decided years ago that it should always be her. Is it true? I said. She put the pen down. She has never once in her life made me ask twice, and she did not start then. Yes, she said. The interview on the 29th. Acceptance if offered. Start on the 12th of April. And the grant back on the Monday. The grant back on the Monday. 5 days ago you stood in this room and I told everybody what you were going to do. You did. And you did it anyway. Yes. Why? Because you were right about what it would cost and wrong about what it was for, she said. You thought I was buying a feeling. I was buying a certificate. He turned the list over. Nor had 4 days. 11 people had work. Marcus O'Yelleran had his first paid fortnight in a year, on a floor with his name on it, for weeks before a panel decides whether he is fit to supervise anything. That is what was in the room, Elias. Not me. You could have told me. Yes. Why did you not? Because you would have stopped it, she said, in some way I had not thought of, the way you did on Friday. And because I did not want to spend the 18 days I have left arguing with you about 18 days. That is the sentence that took the floor out. 18 days. 18 until the interview. 32 until the train. She said the numbers immediately, which meant she had been carrying them. I have known since Saturday. You have known for an hour. I am sorry it happened in a foyer. You are leaving. I am going to a program I applied to when I was 19 and turned down for a reason nobody will tell me, Cordelia said. Including you. The room was very cold. They turned the heating off at 10. Ask me, I said. I beg your pardon. It is nearly midnight. You have not used today's question. Ask me why you turned it down. She looked at me for a long, long moment, and I have been over that look about 400 times and I still do not know what was in it, and now I think I never will, because by then she already had the answer and was deciding whether to let me hand it to her. No, she said. Cordelia, no. I will not spend it on that. She picked the pen back up. I am going to spend it on this instead. Are you going to Bristol? I had not told her. I had not told anybody. I had put that folder back across a table in a room with no coat hook, on the 2nd of March, and I had never mentioned it to one living soul. How do you know about Bristol? That is not an answer. How do you know about Bristol? My mother told me on Saturday, she said. She thought it would help her case. She was wrong about that, but it was an accurate piece of information and she is entitled to use it. No, I said. I am not going to Bristol. Thank you. She wrote a line on the get-out list. That was today's question and I would like it noted that I got full value. Nada offered her the archive on the 15th of March, and I was there, and I have never wanted to leave a room more. We were in the kitchen. Renata had come to collect something and had stayed, which she does not do, and she put a small envelope on the table with a recovery code in it and said, that is the cloud account. All of it. 2 years, restored, whenever you like. Cordelia looked at the envelope for about 4 seconds. Why now? Because you are going in April and because you asked me for it in October and I said eventually, and I have decided that eventually is a coward's word. Renata sat down, which she also does not do. It is not a condition. It is not attached to anything. It is yours and it always was. Thank you, Cordelia said. And then she pushed it back across the table. I do not want it. I have never heard Renata Ashcroft say the word what before. She said it then. I have spent 5 months finding out what that person did, Cordelia said. I have got 3 of the 5 names and I know what happened to 2 of them. I have read a statement of grounds with my own initial on it in the margin. That is enough. Those are documents. This is your life. Those are the parts of my life that happen to other people, she said, which are the only parts that are anybody's business, including mine. Cordelia. If I open that, I will not be finding out what I did. I will be watching myself do it. 2 years of it, in photographs, with the dates on. She put her hand flat on the envelope and slid it another inch. I have finally got to the point where I do not flinch when somebody says my name. I am not going to spend 3 days undoing that so that I can be accurate. That is fear, Renata said. Yes, said her daughter. It is. I am aware. I would still rather be this than correct. And I sat at that table with a cup of tea I had not touched and listened to a woman explain, in complete sentences, with total self-knowledge, exactly why she preferred not to know the truth about herself. Which is the same choice I had made in a hospital room in October, and made again on a wet staircase in December, and made again on a fly floor in January, and every time I had told myself I was doing it for her. She was doing it for herself and she said so out loud in front of her mother, and it was still the wrong choice, and she was still braver about it than I had ever been. That is the night I stopped being able to hold it. Not because of the fellowship. Not because of the train. Because I sat in a kitchen and watched her refuse 2 years of her own life to protect a version of herself she had built in 5 months. And the version she had built was standing on a lie I had told. If I did not take it out from underneath her myself, someone else would, in about a fortnight, in a room in the Humanities Building, in writing. She had paid for the theater with her own future. She had done it under my lie. There was no arrangement of the facts in which I could let her get on a train in April believing that she had once been bought. I walked home and made a decision, and for once it was the right one, and I would like credit for approximately none of it, because I made it 4 months too late and I still did not do it that night. I did it on the 18th, at the annex, at 4 in the afternoon, exactly as announced, and I got 2 sentences in before she stopped me. But that is the next part, and I need to tell one thing first, because it happened on the 16th and I did not find out until much later, and it changes what the 18th was. On the 16th of March the panel wrote to Marcus O'Yelleran. The letter is 4 lines long and he has kept it, which tells you most of what you need to know about him. He upheld it. Complaint unsubstantiated, review vacated, record to be corrected within 6 weeks, and a line at the bottom saying that the panel had given particular weight to a written statement submitted by a third party on the 11th of March. The 11th of March was the opening. She wrote it, and delivered it, and went to work, and stood on a deck at 11 at night and told me nobody had looked up. Mars did not tell me for 6 days. When he did, he was standing in the loading bay with the letter in his hand and he was not pleased, exactly. He looked like a man who has been carrying something for a year and has just discovered it was lighter than he thought and is angry about the year. She put her name on it, he said. Yes. Voluntarily. Before anybody asked her. Yes. The panel said the statement made the rest of the bundle unnecessary. He looked at me. They did not read the exhibits, Elias. They did not need to. I stood in a loading bay and felt something go out of the ground under me. They still have them, I said. They have them in a box in an office and the case is closed. He folded the letter. Nobody is ever going to open that box. She made sure of it, and I do not think she did it for me. You do not know that. I know she has never once asked me what was in it, Mars said. In 5 months. A woman who has spent 5 months researching herself in public libraries has not asked the one man in this city who was there. He put the letter in his coat. There is another thing and then I am going to work. 2 Thursdays ago I was on Ferry Street at about 9:30 and she was in the arcade. It is a public arcade. She was at the claw machine at the back, Mars said. Not playing it. Standing in front of it. For a while. He picked up a case. You told me she does not know anything about last year. She does not. Then tell me what she was doing at that machine, he said, because I have been asking myself for a fortnight and I do not like any of my answers. The get out was on the night of the 16th, straight off the last performance, the way it always is, because a theater wants its room back. It rained from about 10. The loading bay door was propped and everything came down the metal stair from the fly floor and out to the truck, and by midnight that stair had a film on it that the head carpenter had been complaining about since before I was born. She was carrying a case of counterweight bricks down it with both hands. I was at the bottom. She stopped on the 4th tread. Lasted about 2 seconds. Not the way it had happened in December, where she went out like a supply failing. This was smaller and much worse. She stopped, she looked at the handrail, and then she looked at the back of her own left hand. Then she came down the rest of the stair and put the case where it went and said, "That is 9. Do you want the rest of them tonight or in the morning? Are you all right?" Yes. Cordelia. Elias, it is 20 past midnight and there is a truck outside. She went back up the stair. In the morning, I think. He wants the bricks palletized and nobody has found the pallet. That is all of it. That is the entire event. I have described it exactly as it happened and it takes 4 sentences and I did not think about it again for 3 days. He did not ask me a question on the 17th. I noticed and I did not think anything of it, because we had been up until 4 and everybody in that building spent the 17th asleep. She did not ask me one on the 18th. Or the 19th. Or the 20th. By the 21st I was counting, and I would like to describe what that is like, because I do not think there is a name for it. For 5 months a woman had asked me one true thing every day. She had asked me what I eat when nobody is watching and how much of the balance was left and whether she had ruined a man's life. She had budgeted them. She had been furious with herself over a kettle. And then she simply stopped, and everything else stayed exactly the same. She was there every day and she was never once late. She was polite and funny and she brought the get-out list and she complained about the bus and on the 20th she did 9 hours in a storeroom reorganizing 140 stage weights by mass, which she enjoyed enormously. She just did not ask me anything. Not one thing. And when I said something she answered it fully and pleasantly and then waited, in a way she had never waited before, For me to go first. There is only one reason a person with her mind stops asking questions. I knew that on the 21st. I want that on the record along with everything else. I knew it on the 21st and I told myself, for 8 days, that she was tired. I tried to tell her on the 18th at the repair desk at 4 in the afternoon, exactly as announced, and I got as far as 2 sentences. There is something about last year that you do not have and I have had it the whole time, I said. I want to give it to you now, and it is going to be bad, and I would like you to let me get all the way to the end before you say anything. And she said, yes. All right. And she sat down and put her hands in her lap and looked at me and waited, which is the single most terrifying thing that has ever been done to me. And then the door went and Belle Aguirre came in with a dead follow spot and 2 second years, and behind them the head carpenter, and behind him a man from the council about the storeroom. The annex filled up with 7 people in about 90 seconds, because it was the day after a get-out and every dead object in that building had come home to me. By the time it cleared it was 6:30 and she had done 4 hours of unpaid work on a follow spot and there was no version of the sentence left in the room. Tomorrow, I said. Of course, she said, and put her coat on, and at the door she stopped. Elias. Yes. Whatever it is, she said, you should know that I have had 5 months of you telling me the truth about small things every single day, and that I have counted every one of them, and that I have never once caught you out. Then she went for the bus, and I sat in a room full of other people's broken equipment and understood that she had just told me, as kindly as it can be told, exactly how far I had to fall. I tried again on the 20th and I failed on her generosity, and this is the one I find hardest to describe without sounding like I am asking for sympathy. She came into the annex with an envelope and put it on the counter and said, "This is not money." It was a reference. It was 2 pages, typed, on alder letterhead, signed by Noor Haddad, and it described in detail what I had done to a 150-year-old counterweight arbor between November and March. She wrote it in February, Cordelia said. She told me at the time and I asked her to hold it until after the opening, so that it could say the lift ran. Her coat was still buttoned. I have not touched a word of it and I did not ask for it. That is the whole of my involvement and I am telling you all of it because you will want to know. Why are you giving it to me now? Because it is a working reference for a restoration technician and it is worth something in about 9 cities, she said, and because I am going to be gone on the 12th of April and I did not want it to look like a leaving present. She put her hand flat on the envelope, exactly as she had done on the recovery code in her mother's kitchen, and slid it 2 inches towards me. I would like to say the rest of it now, if I may, because I have written it down and I will not do it better later. Go on. I am withdrawing the question I asked you on the 23rd of February. The compressor was running somewhere. I could hear the strip light. I asked you to stay this year and you said yes, she said. I have thought about the circumstances in which you said it. You had just watched me do something quite large with my hands, and you had no way of refusing me on a deck at midnight without it being a bigger sentence than yes. That is not what happened. It may not be. I cannot tell from in here, and neither can you, which is the problem with it. She took the key out of her coat pocket and put it on the counter next to the envelope. That is yours. I have had it since the March before last. I have used it twice, Cordelia. I have used it twice and I told you both times, she said, and I would like it on the record that not using it has been the single hardest thing I have done in my life, harder than the faculty meeting, harder than the envelope, harder than the bus. She stepped back from the counter. You do not owe me this year. You do not owe me the summer. On the 29th you will not owe my family anything either. And on the 12th of April I am getting on a train and I will not ask you for one thing before I go. Why are you doing this? Because I have spent 5 months finding out what I am, she said, and the only useful thing I have learned is that everything I have ever given anybody has had a hook in it, and I would like to hand you one object in my entire life that does not. I stood behind a repair desk with a reference in one hand and a key to my own room in the other, and the truth in my mouth, and I did not say it. I did not say it because saying it at that moment would have taken the only clean thing she had ever done and turned it into the last 5 minutes before she found out what I was. That is the reason I gave myself on the 20th of March, and I have examined it since with as much honesty as I can manage, and here is the finding. It was a good reason. It was a genuinely good reason. And she had told me, in a drawing office, in front of Noor and the head carpenter and Mars, on the 6th of March, that I would find one. The faculty issued Toby Krantz's sentence on the 23rd of March, 15 weeks after she stood up next to a tea urn and asked for it. Is one paragraph. It says that the withdrawal of a funded exchange place in October was not connected to academic performance or conduct, that the resulting interruption is not attributable to the student, and that the department regrets the disruption. He came to collect it in person because he did not trust the post, and he read it standing in the corridor outside the faculty office with his bag still on his shoulder. I was there because he had messaged me to be there, which I did not expect. Cordelia was there because he had messaged her too, which I expected even less. Read it twice. Then he folded it and put it in the front pocket of his bag where it would not bend. Right, he said. Is it what you wanted? She said. It is what I asked for. That is not the same question. No, Toby said, it is not. He shifted the bag. I have lost a year. I am going to be 23 when I finish. The people I started with are working. That paragraph does not do anything about any of that and we all know it. I know. But it exists, he said, and in 6 years when somebody asks me why there is a gap, I will not have to be a man with a story. I will be a man with a paragraph. That is worth more than the 800 and it is worth considerably more than a plane ticket. I am glad. Do not be glad, Toby said. Not unkindly. Flat. You do not get to be glad about this one. This one is mine. And then he shook her hand, exactly the way he had shaken mine in October, and walked off down the corridor, and did not thank anybody, and did not look back. I stood there and watched the only person in this story who got what he asked for leave the building without giving one single thing away. That was correct, Cordelia said, after a while. That was completely correct of him. You paid $800 and a watch and a faculty meeting. Yes. And he did not thank you. Elias, she said, if he had thanked me it would have meant I had done it for the thank you. She got her bag. He worked that out faster than I did and he is not even the clever one. He went to Nor on the 24th and told her about November. She did not have to. Nobody in the world knew about that handshake at the cable rail except the three of us, and one of the three was Nor, and Nor did not consider it a wrong. Cordelia went into that drawing office anyway and said that in November she had made an agreement about a colleague's shifts with his employer, in his presence but without his consent. She said she had done it because she wanted access to him, and that dressing it up as a schedule arrangement had been a way of making an interference look like professionalism. Nor listened to all of it with a pen in her hand. Yes, she said. And I am withdrawing from the summer contract. Nor put the pen down. I was going to offer you the summer contract. I know. That is why I am withdrawing from it. Do not be a child about this. You are good and I am short. I am aware that I am good, Cordelia said, and I would very much like the summer, and I am not going to take a job from a woman I manipulated in November, because then the manipulation worked. There was a long pause. Noor Haddad is not a sentimental person and I have watched her fire 2 people without changing her breathing. Fine, she said. That is your decision and I think it is a waste and I am going to accept it, because if I argue you out of it I am doing the same thing to you. She picked the pen back up. For what it is worth, the agreement was mine. I proposed the terms. You just did not say no. That is generous. It is accurate. Do not turn it into a gift. Nor pulled a drawing towards her. Go on. I have a lighting bar. And that was the whole of it, and I stood by the door and watched 2 women dismantle the one arrangement that had put us in the same building, politely, in about 4 minutes, with no raised voices and nothing left over. I have never in my life been so frightened as I was by 2 people being reasonable with each other in a drawing office on a Tuesday afternoon. Went to Ferry Street on the 25th, on my own, at 9:30 at night, which I had not done in a year and 4 months. The arcade is exactly what it was. Same yellow light, same carpet, same smell. The claw machine is at the back on the left and the sun has taken the color out of everything in it and nobody has changed the prizes since the last government. I stood in front of it for about 10 minutes, which is what Mars said she had done, and I would like to report that something occurred to me there. Nothing occurred to me there. Then I put $4 into it and lost all 4, because it is rigged, because the grip strength drops out of the solenoid on the lift, which is true, and she was right, and she kept going anyway. I tried for the 3rd time on the 26th and I got further than ever before, and I stopped in a different place, and I would like to set it down exactly. We were on the towpath. It was about 11. She had done a day of nothing, which she was very bad at, and she had spent it reorganizing my parts trays into an order she considered superior, which it was. I have to tell you something, I said. Yes. It is about last October. Yes. It is not going to be a small thing and you are not going to want to have heard it. Elias, she said, you have started this 3 times. I know. I am not saying it to be cruel. I am saying it because you appear to think I have not noticed, and it is important to me that you know I have noticed. We walked past the bridge. The water was doing what it does. Here is what I think is happening, she said. I think you have decided that there is a correct moment for it. And I think that every time you get close, you look at the moment and you find that it is not correct. She kept walking. Because the moment has me in it looking pleased about something, and you would rather have a version where I am already unhappy so that it costs you less. That is not, it might not be. I am telling you what it looks like from the outside, which is the only view I have. And I stopped on a towpath at 11 o'clock at night and said the truest thing I said in the entire 5 months. I am a coward, I said. That is not modesty and it is not a way of asking you to argue. It is a technical description. I made myself keep going. I have had a piece of information since October that belongs to you and I have kept it because keeping it has been comfortable for me, and every reason I have given myself has been true and none of them have been the reason. She stood there in the dark and let me finish. That is the most honest thing you have ever said to me, she said. Yes. Are you going to tell me now? And I opened my mouth, and what came out was, not on a towpath. She nodded once, the way you nod at a delivery that has arrived as described. All right, she said. Then I am going to ask for one thing and it is not a question. Ask. Whenever you do it face on. Not on a walk, not in a car, not on a telephone, and not in a room where either of us can be interrupted. She started walking again. I have had one piece of enormous information delivered to me in my life and I got it lying down in a hospital gown with a drip in my arm, and I would like the next one standing up. Last payment on my father's debt cleared at 11 o'clock in the morning on the 29th of March, in the Ashcroft Trust office on the second floor of a building on Gaunt Street, in person, in cash, because I wanted a receipt with a date on it. There were 4 people in that office. A woman on the desk, 2 administrators, and Renata Ashcroft, who was not supposed to be there and who came out of the back office about 90 seconds after I arrived, which tells you she had asked to be told. You could have transferred it. I could have. You have brought $5,400 across a city in a bag. $5,440. Because you wanted to hand it to somebody. Because I wanted a piece of paper with today on it. She had the woman on the desk count it. It took a while. Nobody said anything while it happened, which was the best part of my week. Then Renata said, the Bristol Post closes on Monday. I know. It is a genuine post with genuine work and my involvement in it ends the moment you accept. I know that too. And no. That is an expensive no. It is the cheapest one I have made all year. She looked at the money on the desk and then at me, and she said, may I ask you something, since you are no longer a debtor and I am no longer a creditor and there is nothing between us at all. Go on. What are you to my daughter? The 2 administrators had stopped pretending to work about 4 minutes earlier. The woman on the desk had a rubber band in her hand and did not move it. And I stood in that office on the second floor of a building on Gaunt Street with a receipt in my hand and no debt in the world, and I answered it out loud, in front of 3 members of staff, in a trust office, which is the most public place I have ever been in my life. I am not on a retainer, I said. I have never been on a retainer. Nobody in this office has ever paid me for anything and as of 11 o'clock this morning nobody in this family is owed anything by me either. That is what you are not. I am in love with your daughter, I said. I have been since about 4 months after I met her. I was in love with her before that money left this office and I have been in love with her every single day I have been paying it back. I did not lower my voice. I am going to be in love with her after she gets on that train on the 12th of April, and none of that is a secret from anybody in this room now except her. Renata Ashcroft stood absolutely still. Then why, she said, does she not know? Because I am going to tell her, I said, on the 11th, in a room, standing up, face on. That is 13 days. Yes. She is being interviewed at 2 o'clock this afternoon. I know. If they offer it she will take it. She has undertaken to. I know that too. I want her to. Do you? Yes. And that one was true, and it surprised me on the way out, the way the second yes in the arcade had. I got as far as the door. Mr. Ward. I turned round. Renata was still standing in the middle of her own office in front of 3 staff who were going to talk about this for a decade. For what very little it is worth, she said, I believe you. And you have just made it considerably harder for me to be certain I did the right thing in October, and I would like you to know that I will not be thanking you for that either. They offered her the Ainsley at 4:20 that afternoon, in the room, which apparently they never do. She accepted it, because she had undertaken to, in a kitchen, in front of her mother, in exchange for a fire curtain certificate. She rang me at 5:30 and told me in one sentence and then talked for 20 minutes about the men who had interviewed her. He had a theory about her field she considered structurally unsound, and she had told him so, at length, in the interview, which is presumably why they offered it in the room. She was happy. I could hear it. She was happy the way she used to be happy, the way that makes other people nervous, and it was the first time since the 16th of March that anything in her voice had been unguarded. And on the 29th of March, at 5:30 in the evening, with a receipt in my pocket and no debt to anybody, standing in a workshop with a rectangle of clean floor where a lathe used to be, I was free, entirely, for the first time in 2 years. I had wanted that on a wet staircase in October more than I have ever wanted anything. I listened to her talk about a man with an unsound theory, and I would have traded the whole of it, the receipt and the freedom and the $4,200, for 11 more days than I had. Noor Haddad offered me a job on the 8th of April in a corridor, with her coat on her way to a train. Aberdeen. 2 years. They have a Victorian house with a hemp system nobody has touched since the 60s and a board that has finally worked out what that costs. She did not stop walking. I am doing the survey in June. They want a lead technician on site from August and they have asked me who. That is a real job. I do not have any other kind. It is $19,000 a year, which is not enough, and a flat above a bakery, which is the actual offer. Why me? She stopped then. Because you rebuilt a 150-year-old arbor in 4 months, out of hours, on $9 an hour, while your entire life was on fire, and it ran on a queue on the 11th of March and nobody looked up. Nor, I am not being warm. I do not do that. I am telling you that I have watched about 60 technicians and you are one of 4 I would put on a building without a handrail. She started walking again. Aberdeen is 400 miles from where she is going, in case that was your next question. I checked, because I am not an idiot, and I decided to tell you that I checked. When do you need to know? August. Tell me in June. She got to the door. Elias. It is a real offer and it stands whatever you do about anything else. I would like you to understand that, because you are a man who does not believe a door is open unless somebody proves it. She left me a door. I want that recorded, because in the whole of this story exactly 2 people gave me a working exit and neither of them was in love with me. She was going on the 12th of April at 9:10 in the morning. I told her on the 11th. I asked her for a room, and she gave me one, and the room I picked was my father's workshop, because it is the only building in that city that has ever been mine, and because I wanted to be standing on the spot where all of it started when I said it. She came at 8 in the evening. She had been packing for 4 days and she had that look people get at the end of packing, where they have stopped owning anything. She stood in the middle of the floor and she did not sit down and she did not take her coat off and she said, face on and standing up. Go on. So I told her that we were engaged. Really engaged, not as any part of any arrangement. That it happened in an arcade off Ferry Street at 1 in the morning on the 7th of November, that she asked me, and that she had won a ring out of a rigged machine on the 9th attempt. I said yes in about half a second, and then said it again a second later in a different voice, and that both of those are still on a phone in this city. I told her that she wanted to announce it at her mother's spring gala and that I asked her to wait, and then asked her to wait again, and that she waited both times without one word of complaint and wore it on a chain under her shirt for 11 months. I told her that her mother never knew. That the reason nobody in that hospital corridor contradicted me was that there was only one other person in the world who could have, and he was in a loading bay, and he did not know she had lost anything yet. I told her about her father's trust closing my father's debt at his funeral without asking, and about the repayment agreement, and that all of that was true, and that it was the only true thing in the sentence I said on the 20th of October. I told her about the 4 before Toby. I gave her the 2 names her mother had refused to give her. Then I told her the rest of it, and this is the part one had been carrying since October, and I did it in order and without stopping, because if I stopped I would start choosing again. I told her that on the 20th of October I ended it. That I asked her to meet me at the lock stairs, in the rain, on purpose, because it was where we first talked, and that I chose the place like a coward chooses a place, so the setting would do some of it for me. I told her that she knew before I said a word. That she offered to close the whole debt that night and call it severance so I could go anywhere I wanted, and that I refused it out loud, and that she took the chain off over her head and told me to take the ring back and I would not take it. I told her that she asked me a question. You asked me whether I had ever chosen you, I said. Once. Any single day. Or whether I had only ever failed to leave. The workshop was very quiet. There is a rectangle of clean floor in the middle of it about 6 feet long. I did not answer you, I said. I stood there and said nothing and let you watch me say nothing. And you nodded, and you turned round to go, and the clasp on the chain let go, and the ring went down the steps, and you went after it because your hands were full. I took it out of my left jacket pocket. Tin, chipped green stone, the broken chain still wound round it because I have never untangled it. I picked this up before I went down to you, I said. That is not a figure of speech. You were at the bottom of the stairs and I picked this up first, and I put it in my pocket, and I have carried it every day since, and I have never told a living person until now. I put it in her hand. You lost 2 years and 11 days in that fall, I said. The last 11 months were the only ones I would have been ashamed of. She did not look up from the ring. So I stood in a room at 6:20 in the morning and told you the whole 2 years had been a business arrangement, and I called it a clean start, and I have serviced it every day for 5 months and 21 days. That is all of it. There is nothing after that. There is no part 1 I'm holding back for a better moment. Everything you have believed about yourself since October has had my hand in it. I did not let myself stop. The thing you asked me on the stairs is the last piece of your own life that nobody could have given you but me, and I have had it in my pocket since October like the ring. And then I stopped, and there was nothing else in the world to say, and I stood in my father's workshop and waited to be finished off. She looked at the ring in her hand for a long time. Then she said, the 16th of March. 20 past midnight. Fourth tread from the top of the shop stair, coming down with the last case of bricks. I did not understand for about a second and a half. Rain on metal. My hand on the rail. My hands full so I could not put them out. She closed her fingers over the ring. It came back on the stair at the get-out. Not the fall. Everything before it. All of it, in about 4 hours, mostly that night in my own bathroom sitting on the floor. The strip light in that workshop has a fault in it. It has had it since I was 14. You have known since the 16th of March, I said. Yes. That is 26 days. 26 days. You did not ask me one question in 26 days. No, she said. I stopped on the 17th. You noticed on the 21st, because I watched you notice, and you did not say anything either. I sat down on a bench because my legs had stopped being interested. The video, I said. The 29th of January, she said. You left your phone face up on a steel bench and I read what was in front of me, which is the thing I told you in November I have never once been able to stop doing. You watched it. I watched it 7 times in 20 minutes and then I heard you on the stairs and I put it down. It was completely level. I deleted it in February. Not the night I saw it. 3 weeks later, in the annex, while you were in the storeroom. I have thought about which of those 2 things is worse and it is the 3 weeks. You wrote the statement for Mars. On the 10th of March. I took it in on the 11th before the opening. So the panel would not read the exhibits. She agreed. It was also true, and he deserved it, and I would have written it anyway. Both things are the case and I will not sort them out for you. Why, I said. Why did you not come at me in January with a phone in your hand? And she told me, standing up, in a coat, holding a $2 ring, in the most ordinary voice she has. Because there were only 2 possibilities, she said. Either you had lied to me in that hospital room, or you had not. And if you had, then you had done it about a real engagement, to a woman who had just lost her memory, in front of her mother, and kept it up for months. And there is only one kind of person you do that to, she said. You do not do that to somebody who was merely difficult. You do that to somebody who was so far past difficult that a man who says no to $31,000 decided that lying to her was the kinder option. She looked at the rectangle of clean floor. The video did not tell me what you had done. It told me what I had been. She was still standing. I had spent 3 months getting to where I could hear my own name without my stomach going, and I decided, on a bench, in 90 seconds, that I would rather be the new one. That is exactly what I did, I said. In the hospital. Yes, she said. That is why I have not been able to be properly angry with you for 11 weeks, and I would like you to know that I have tried very hard, because I would have liked to have it. Then she was quiet for a while, and when she spoke again her voice had gone somewhere I had not heard it go before. You should know what it cost, she said. You should not get to walk out of here thinking it was survivable because I am standing up. Tell me. I have known since the 16th of March that the man I am in love with has been lying to me since October, she said. I have known it while working next to him. I have known it while he sat in my mother's kitchen. I have known it every time he refused a question out loud. I did not move. And I want you to understand that the refusals were the worst part, because they were honest, and I could feel how much they were costing you, and I let you pay it. Cordelia, I am not finished. On the 20th you gave me back a key I have had for 2 years and you let me say a speech about hooks, and I stood in that annex knowing every word was landing on a man who already had the answer, and I said it anyway, to hear how it sounded. She put the ring in her coat pocket. That is what I am, she said. That has not changed and I do not think it is going to. She was not apologizing. The memory came back on the 16th of March and the person came back with it, and she is standing in your father's workshop being extremely calm about the fact that she let you suffer for 26 days out of curiosity. So no. Do not decide I am the injured one. We have been doing exactly the same thing to each other since January and the only difference is that I started later and was better at it. The clock on the wall in that workshop is my father's and it is 4 minutes fast and I have never fixed it. There is one thing you had that I could not get, she said at last. Not from the video. Not from the archive, which I could have opened at any point since the 15th of March and did not. The stairs. The last 11 minutes. The doctor told my mother in October and my mother told me in March. Those do not come back for anybody. There was exactly one copy of what I said to you on that staircase and it was inside your head. She looked straight at me. You had the only thing I could not obtain, she said, and there was no scenario in which telling me improved your position by 1 inch, and you brought it here and put it in my hand on the night before I leave. That is the only piece of information I have ever received in my life, she said, that did not have a hook in it. I did not say anything. There was nothing on my side of the table. I am going to go now, she said, because my train is at 9:10 and because if I stay in this room another 20 minutes I will do something I have not decided to do. Ask me anything, I said. You have not used a question in 25 days. Take all of them. And she stopped at the door with her hand on the frame and she said the thing that I lived inside for the next 5 weeks. There is one I want, she said. It is the one I asked you on the second morning in the hospital and you refused, and I have wanted it every day since. Then ask it. No. Cordelia. No, she said. Because if I ask you tonight you will say yes. You have just stood in your father's workshop and taken yourself apart from me and you are not currently a reliable instrument, and I would get an answer, and I would never in my life be able to tell what it was made of. She opened the door. It was raining, because of course it was. You told me in October that the test is whether people got to choose, she said. That was the best thing anybody has ever said to me and I have been trying to build a life out of it for 5 months. I am not going to break it on you on the last night. So I am going to Ainsley, she said. I am going to be 400 miles away and I will not write and I will not look, and you will have nothing in front of you except a receipt with no debt on it, a reference worth something in 9 cities, and a flat above a bakery in Aberdeen. How do you know about Aberdeen? Nor told me on the 8th, she said. In a corridor. On her way to a train. She wanted me to know that you had a door. Then she went out into the rain and did not look back, and she got on the 9:10 the next morning, and I did not go to the station, because there was not one single thing I could have said there that would not have been a hook. Here is what nobody tells you about finally saying the true thing. It does not lift. I had spent 5 months carrying a lie around a small city and I had a theory, which everybody has, that the weight was the lie. The weight was not the lie. The weight was her not knowing, and putting it down did not make it lighter, it only moved it 400 miles away where I could not look at it. For about a fortnight I was extremely well behaved. I went to the annex. I fixed things. I ate. I did not message her once, which sounds like discipline and was actually terror, because the only sentence I had was please and I knew exactly what that word does in that family. Lars came and found me at the end of the second week and made me go to a pub, which he had not done since the spring before last. So you told her. I told her. And she had known for 26 days. He put his glass down. That is the funniest thing I have ever heard in my life. It is not funny. Elias, it is extremely funny, and if you cannot see that yet you will in about a year. He got the record correction on the 22nd of April and the Kestrel closed on the 1st of May and he made it with 9 days to spare. He will be 24 when he qualifies and he is going to be better than all of us, and he has never once said thank you to her, and when I asked him about that he said, she did not do it for me and I did not do it for her, and we're both entirely comfortable with the arrangement. Nada Ashcroft wrote to me at the end of April. 1 page. She said that her daughter had told her the whole of it before she left, in the kitchen, in about 6 minutes, without sitting down. She said that she had then told her daughter about the assessment she had begun 2 years ago and about the boy in the torn jacket who had stopped it, because it had become the only thing in the house that anybody was still holding. She said her daughter had listened to all of it and said, "Thank you for telling me," and had then asked one question, which was whether her mother had ever considered simply arguing with her. Renata wrote that she had not. That it had genuinely never occurred to her, in 19 years, and that she had spent the fortnight since working out what that says about her, and had not finished. The last line said, "I am not asking you to reply, and I have not put an address on this." I did not go after her, and I would like to explain why, because for about 3 weeks I could not have. I had the money for a ticket by then. I had a reference worth something in 9 cities and no debt and nothing to do until August. There was a train 4 times a day and I looked up the times more than once. And every time I got as far as imagining the actual moment, I saw myself arriving. That is the whole of it. I saw a man turning up 400 miles away, unannounced, at the start of the best thing that had ever happened to her, holding nothing but himself, and expecting that to be received as a gift. I had spent 5 months explaining to a woman why you cannot hand somebody a fully funded place and call it love. The plane ticket, the envelope, the exchange, the post house in Montreal. I finally understood, sitting on a bench outside a station in the 3rd week of May, that a man who gets on a train to a city where somebody is trying to start again is doing the identical thing with a smaller budget. So I did not go, not out of pride, and not because I had stopped wanting to. I did not go because it was her turn to have a life that nobody had arranged for her, and because for the first time in 2.5 years I could give her one, and the only way to do it was to sit still. That is the least impressive thing I have ever done, and it took more out of me than the lathe did, and it is the only part of any of this that I am proud of. She messaged me on the 4th of June at 8:10 in the morning and it was one line, and the line was the lock stairs on the canal, 4 o'clock, if you are free. I read it about 9 times. Then I went and did a full day at the repair desk, because I am not the sort of man who can sit in a room for 8 hours, and I got a shower head working for a woman from the housing office and I have no memory of a single second of it. It was dry. That is the first thing I want on the record. It was the 4th of June, it was 4 in the afternoon, the sun was out, there were 2 men fishing off the far bank and a boat going through the lock with a dog on it. I had spent 8 months rehearsing a version of that staircase in the rain, at night, with everything at stake, and when it finally happened it was the most ordinary weather that city has. She was already there, at the top, in a coat she did not need, looking at the grit tape on the second tread. "They have done the tread," she said. "They did it in November. Only about 4 years late." About that. She looked well. That is a stupid thing to notice first and it is what I noticed first. She had cut her hair, and there was something off her shoulders that I had never seen her without. "How is it?" I said. "The program is extremely good and the man who interviewed me is wrong about almost everything, which has made the first 8 weeks very stimulating for both of us. And the city. The buses run. It is unnerving. Nobody there knows how lucky they are." "You did not write." "No. You said you would not." I said I would not and I did not, and it was the hardest 8 weeks of my life, and I would like some credit for it and I am aware that none is coming. The boat went into the lock. The dog looked at us. "I have 4 things to say," she said, "and then 1 question, and then I am going to stop talking, which I would like you to appreciate is not my natural condition." "Go on." "First, I am not moving back. The program is 2 years and I am going to finish it. Whatever happens on these stairs in the next 10 minutes, I get on the 6:40 tomorrow morning and I go back, and I do not want anybody to tell me later that I gave something up. Good. Do not say good so quickly, I have not finished being frightened about it. Second, I do not look. I have not looked since April and I am not going to. I want to be exact about this, because vague terms are how people get robbed." She put her hands in her coat pockets. "I know what shifts you are on this week. Nor told me, because I asked her, and I asked her out loud in front of you now, which is the arrangement." "That is the arrangement. It is a poor arrangement and I intend to keep it for the rest of my life. I am not going to become a person who does not want to know. I am going to become a person who says it out loud and then does not go." Third. She took a breath. "Nothing about your life. Ever again. Not a job, not a placement, not a debt, not a person who annoys you, not a flat above a bakery." She did not hurry any of it. "If there is ever a thing I can do, I will ask you first and you will say the word out loud, and if you do not say it I do not do it, and I will not do it later in a way you would not notice. And if I never say it, then I never do it," she said. "That is what the condition means. I have not put a clause in it." I checked. Fourth. And here she took the ring out of her pocket. Tin. Chipped green stone. She had untangled the chain, which I never managed in 8 months, and put a new clasp on it, and I could see that she had done it herself and not very well. "This is yours now," she said. "Not on loan. Yours to keep or throw in that water, and I have thought about this part more than the other three put together. She put it in my hand. In the arcade I put this in your hand and asked you a question that was not really a question, because I had already decided, and because I had made it very difficult for you to say anything except yes, and because I am extremely good at that and I did it on purpose. You did not, Elias. I put a ring in your hand in an arcade at 1 in the morning after making you walk 2 miles in the rain, and you had known me for 4 months and I had already paid off your father's debt. She said it perfectly evenly. Let me have this one. I know what I did. So this time you are holding it, she said, and a no is a working no, and it costs you nothing at all, and I have arranged my life so that it costs me less than it would have last October, which is the only honest thing I can tell you about that. The lock gates opened. The boat went out. Somewhere behind us on the towpath a child was being extremely unreasonable about a bicycle. Marry me, Cordelia said. And then, before I could get anywhere near it, that is the offer. That is not the question. Do not answer the offer. Then what is the question? It is the one I asked you on the second morning in the hospital, she said, and you refused it out loud, and you were right to, because I would have taken any answer you gave me and built a campaign out of it, and we both know it. I have one a day. I have not spent one since the 16th of March. She stood on a dry staircase in June and asked me the same 6 words she asked me in a hospital gown with a drip in her arm. Did you love me? You told me our engagement was fake, she said. You told me in a room, with my mother in it, and it held for 5 months and 21 days. So I am not asking you for a yes, because a yes is what people say to an offer, and I have had a lifetime of people saying yes to offers. Want the real answer to the question. Whatever it is. I will take it standing up and I will get on the 6:40 either way. So I stood on the lock stairs on the canal on the 4th of June with a $2 ring in my hand, and I answered it. Yes, I said. That is not enough. I know it is not. I am getting to the rest of it. You asked me that in October too, I said. Not that. The other one. You asked me whether I had ever chosen you, or whether I had only ever failed to leave. And I did not answer, and 11 minutes later you were at the bottom of these stairs, and I have owed you that answer since. So here it is, and it is longer than you want, and you are going to stand there and have it. I chose you in an arcade in November, in half a second, and then again a second later in a different voice, and that second one is the one that counts and it is on Marcus O'Yelleran's phone. I chose you every month for 11 months when I did not tell your mother, and that one was not brave, that was me being a coward about being a fact. And I chose you on the 20th of October, I said, on these stairs, in the rain, when you offered to close $31,000 and let me walk out of your city clean, and I said no. It was the worst deal anybody has ever refused. I could have been free that night and I said no out loud so there would be no confusion later, and I have spent 8 months telling myself that was about my dignity. It was not. I did not want your money because taking it would have ended it. In 2.5 years I never once failed to leave. I have declined, every time, at cost, and called it 100 other things because calling it what it was would have meant admitting I was in it on purpose. The water did what it does. She did not move. So the answer to the second morning is yes, I said, and the answer to the staircase is that I chose you every time and lied about it to myself first and to you second, and the answer to the offer is yes, and I have one condition. Name it. The question goes both ways. She blinked. It is the only time I have ever surprised her. One a day, either of us, no accumulation, no rolling over. Answered honestly or refused out loud so the other one always knows which they got. I closed my hand around the ring. You have had 5 months of asking me things and I have never once asked you anything, and I have decided that is not a rule, that is a hiding place, and I am not living in it for 2 years. That is a considerably worse deal for you than for me. I am aware. I ask better questions than you. I am painfully aware. Then yes, she said. Yes to that. And then Cordelia Ashcroft stood on a staircase in June and cried, badly, with no control in it anywhere, which she has done twice in my presence and both times were on this flight of steps. I asked out loud whether I could touch her. She said yes out loud. We are going to do that for the rest of our lives, and I have stopped finding it strange, and I have never once been sorry that we started. Later, on the towpath, she took an envelope out of her coat. These are not a gift and they are not an arrangement. What are they? 2 tickets. She handed them over and waited. First one is a single, out to me, for whenever you want, and it does not expire, and there is a name on it and the name is yours and nobody paid for it except me and it cost $31, which I have deliberately made a very small number. And the second? The second is the return, she said. I looked at it for a while. I bought it at the same time, she said, in the same transaction. Deliberately, in one go, so that I could not do the thing where I buy the outward one now and forget about the other one until it becomes an argument in November. You bought me a way out. I bought you a way out, she said, and I have never enjoyed doing anything less, and I stood at a ticket window and had to say the word return twice because the men did not hear me, and it was the worst 4 seconds of my year. I laughed. I could not help it. She looked extremely offended for about half a second and then she laughed too. You going to use it, she said. The return. Either. I am going to use the first one in about 9 days, I said, and I am going to keep the second one in my jacket. Which pocket? The left. Ah, she said. Good. That one has been standing empty since April and I have not liked it. We walked back along the towpath. She had 10 questions saved up and no right to any of them, and she asked me one, which was whether I had actually taken the Aberdeen job. I said not yet. I said I was going to tell Nor in June, and that Aberdeen is 400 miles from her, and that we were going to be 2 people on a map for 2 years with a flat above a bakery at one end of it. That sounds appalling, she said. It sounds completely appalling. Are you going to take it? Yes. Good, she said. Ask me mine.
So, what do you think about Elias and the way this story ended? At first, almost everything between them looked like generosity, money, opportunities, problems quietly solved before they could become problems. But the more you look at it, the clearer the pattern becomes. Every gift came with one thing missing: the other person's ability to choose. And Elias eventually understood that, only to make the exact same mistake in a different form. Instead of controlling her with money, he controlled what she was allowed to know, convincing himself that hiding the truth was somehow kinder. That is why I think the ending works so well. What finally fixes things between them is not another grand gesture. It is something much smaller. Honest questions, honest refusals, and the freedom to say no without the relationship falling apart. Even that second ticket matters. Because giving someone a way forward means very little if you quietly remove their way back. So, what do you think? Can something still be cold love if one person keeps taking choices away for the other person's own good? Or is real love only proven when you give someone every opportunity to leave and trust that they might still choose to stay? Let me know what you think in the comments. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more.